We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use the box at sign up for 10 points. And here we go.
Welcome one, welcome all to the NHL Season Preview on the Sports Box. I am Brian Attard, along with a very I guess not really diverse team cast of characters, because 3 of the other 4 root for the same loser franchise. But anyway, Brian Hess, Mike Velarde, Anthony Morella, Matt Zuccarello will be with you for the next as long as it takes to go through our NHL season preview. Gentlemen.
That's right, Mike.
Are we done yet?
Wow.
No.
Shortened season, not a shortened show.
No, quite the opposite, actually. We definitely have a lot to talk about. There's Tom O'Neill. Let's go Rangers. I got my people coming in. We awfully appreciate that. So it is listen, it's going to be well, first and foremost, before we get into the meat of the NHL season, Team USA with the World Juniors gold out of nowhere. Right. Listen, I'm the first person to tell you, I thought they were going to get destroyed in that game against Canada, and if not for Spencer Knight standing on his head, they still might have. But
and Cam York's defense.
Unbelievable how they took an onslaught and they got it through. Stick taps to the boys. We definitely appreciate that. Love it, love it, love it. My first question for y'all. It's a 56-game schedule. It is an all-divisional schedule because they're looking to reduce travel. Brian Hess, when you think about what that's going to actually be like on the ice, with these games where you're playing back-to-backs with 2 teams, it's almost like baseball where you're having a 2-game homestand and homes and stuff like that. What's your thought about how that's actually going to play out?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of really competitive hockey. I mean, you're talking about, like you said, with the back-to-backs. I mean, these teams are going to get tired of playing each other. You know what I mean? I mean, they're already divisional rivals, a lot of these teams, and now they're going to see each other 8 times a season, even 9, 10 times a season in the Canadian division. But, you know, it'll be interesting. I think these teams are going to get tired of each other, the intensity, like you see in playoff series, you know, after a couple of games, I mean, really the hitting starts to pick up. I think it's going to be a lot more physical, a lot more intense. You probably see a little more fighting than usual, but it should be interesting. Very, very interesting to see how things go.
There's Chris Jenkins, Flyer fan. Mike Velarde.
Yes.
Your thoughts coming into this format?
What are my thoughts? Well, like you said, the divisions are realigned. For proximity reasons, I would have to assume that, just looking over the divisions, and you and I talked about this as well, the East division is stacked pretty much. It's a tough division. All of the teams, I guess you want to say, besides the Devils, pretty much have improved. I don't really think the Devils improved a lot, but all those teams in that division are pretty good, and can make a significant run to the playoffs. Just kind of looking over the divisions, and we'll get to every division. What do you have? 16 teams that make the playoffs, and the top 4 teams in each division are going to make the playoffs.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's still some good teams that are going to be left out of the playoff picture. Let's put it that way.
Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens every year, though, because, look at the Central for all those years when there were teams left out. It's going to be the same thing. I just think this year is just going to translate over to the East. The East is literally a beast. The best goaltending, I think, by far of any division, and that's going to obviously carry a lot of these teams early on as they kind of get their feet back under them. But it's a lot of things we got to touch on, a lot of injuries, a lot of teams that are losing really big players already. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Matt?
I agree with everyone. Yeah, the East is going to be a monster. With just some of my selections you'll get into a little bit, but with everyone pretty much upgrading, I think what's going to be interesting this year, maybe more than others with the shortened season, is if there's a lot of back-to-backs with these teams. Sort of like baseball, almost. Maybe I think the backup goaltenders are going to see more action to start a season. And a shortened season, you really can't go through any slumps. So it's going to injuries are going to play obviously a pivotal role, but I believe backup goaltenders with some of these teams are going to be a lot more. Maybe instead of their normal 10 to 15 games a year, like you used to see in the 80s and 90s, they're going to be I don't know if it's going to be a 50-50 split, but maybe like 60-40. And like I said, no slumps. If you go through a 3 or 4 game losing streak, it's going to be tough to make up some points in the shortened season.
I kind of go back and forth on this. I don't know if the abbreviated schedule, the condensed schedule, helps younger teams or veteran teams who've been through it, because obviously if you're younger, you can rejuvenate quicker. You're more fresh for these games. But as a veteran, you've been through playoff runs and things like that. You've been into games that feel like they're more important. It's going to be fascinating to see how that piece of it plays out, because from a strategy standpoint, you're going to know what all these teams like to do and what their tendencies are, because you're playing the same teams over and over again. I've been known to say the playoffs are so much different because you're playing the same team. So the tendencies you have, the weaknesses that you have, can be exposed by the team who sees you game in and game out. You don't get to go play a California road trip against teams that you don't see. You're not going to get a homestand against, Vancouver or Calgary flying into New York or Philadelphia, teams that don't really see you very much. They don't have time to pre-scout. I think it's going to be so important to know what each team is doing. And by the time we're into March, everyone's just going to be very, very familiar with each other. It is going to end up, I think, being more of a will over skill, and that if it's and like the playoffs, if you're able to put your body on the line, I think that you're going to see better results. I'm curious to see how that actually plays out. We touched on this a little bit here. When you think of teams that either are benefiting from or are hurt by this temporary divisional alignment, the one team that really stands out to me that has benefited by this is the Tampa Bay Lightning, because they're normally in a division with powerhouses Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leafs. They're not there this year. So when you start looking at the teams that are in and we're going to talk about the names of these divisions. I guess it's the Central, or whatever they're calling it. It's actually the team they played in the finals last year, in the Dallas Stars, and Carolina. But there's not really much else behind them. So I think frankly, this format really benefits a team like Tampa Bay, because that you don't have to play these perceived powerhouse teams the way, frankly, teams in the East do.
I think just looking at it, I think the Avalanche have a pretty, I want to say easy road, but they're the Stanley Cup favorite going into this year, according to Vegas. And just look at their division. I mean, you have Anaheim, who's pretty much trash. Arizona's trash. The Kings aren't very good. Minnesota's okay. San Jose was trash last year. The Blues and Vegas. So they're pretty much a lock, I think, to at least make the 4 teams in our division.
Yeah, you want to talk about a team that is hurt by it? I think I would go with your New York Rangers, Brian, because, in the old Metro division, you'd have Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly. I mean, they'd be in the wild card hunt. And now, because only 4 teams make the East, I mean, you got to leapfrog. You have Boston, Washington, the Flyers, the Islanders, and the Penguins, and you're looking at 6 maybe. So you're gonna have to jump over 2 of those 5 teams to get into the playoffs. Now I know you still say they're a year away, but I mean another playoff run would have been really beneficial for that young group of players.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We're gonna break down a couple of teams specifically, and there will be a topic that comes up. Yeah, I mean, you have to be in the top 4 within your group. If your group is harder to get a top 4, and worse teams will get in other divisions over, and it's no different than last year with conferences. If I think of the Rangers or the teams that were like around that 8 or 9 were out west, they would have been in like the 6th seed. Like it was off balance. In a situation like this, yeah, you're going to see some teams that are going to be out and in simply because of the group of division of teams are playing.
And I think you already mentioned that. I think, like you said, I agree with Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay and Dallas definitely have the advantage in Central. In the East, I agree with all of you. I mean, there's literally the 4 through 7 team could make the playoffs. I mean, it really you'll be shocked at some of my picks. I think in the East though too. Not gonna spoil it with the jersey on, but I really think the other advantage is the teams in the North. I mean, it's one less team, and the Canucks and the Oilers, I think, really get an advantage there too. They're playing only Canadian teams, and I think those are the 2 teams that are the top 2 in there. And I mean, you still got Ottawa, the Canadians, and the Jets. So I mean, those are the 2 because of the one less team, and I think the Canucks and Oilers really get a big advantage coming out of the North.
I'll give you one advantage of being in the East is you can travel anywhere by train. I mean, there really is other than Buffalo, it's the furthest away. Compare that to the North Division where you have to be in Toronto and fly across country to Vancouver. You have to go through time zones. They always say that the travel east to west is what really, gets to teams. You don't have that problem in the East. Everybody's very close to each other. Even in the Central, even in the West, it's not that you're not switching time zones. The North is the only one where you're going to have that. And to me, that makes it more difficult because, again, you're playing back-to-back games and then you're traveling. I mean, everything's condensed. I mean, I think the less time you got to spend on a plane, the better off generally. So, there is some benefit from that standpoint, at least, to being in the East. Chris Jenkins, East toughest division in hockey. Tom O'Neill, I mentioned Rangers' age could help to upset tougher division. That's a fair point. Brian Blaine, all things considered, the Metro should have had 6 in the playoffs last year alone, which is a fair point. And you're basically getting most of the Metro minus Carolina and Columbus in this East division that they're calling it. General thoughts on these helmet advertisements and more so the divisional naming rights. I personally don't like either. I get the helmet a little bit more. Wherever somebody thought of calling it like the Mass Mutual East Division and the Honda West Division, like I look at that and I say, if that ends up on somebody's banner, like if let's just say the Ducks win the West out of nowhere and there's a big banner hanging in the pond that says, Honda West Champion with the Honda logo on it, like that's going to really bother me. I don't really like helmet ads, but they got to make money somehow to keep the cap where it is. So I get it. Just your overall thoughts on, do you care? Is it weird? Will it stay past this season on both of these items?
Yeah, to me, it sounds a lot like a hockey tournament. They always are sponsored by somebody, the Mercedes-Benz Championship or whatever the case may be. I mean, it almost feels like hockey kind of took itself down a notch, like to get on golf's level a little bit. And listen, I understand it's a draw and they need to make money and everybody's suffering from this pandemic, but I just thought there was a better way to do this. I don't hate it, but there's a better way to do it. I haven't thought of what it is yet.
Hess, we've seen European hockey where you got these ads all over the ice. The ads are on the jerseys. We just saw the World Junior Championships where you have this really nice Ranger-looking USA jersey with a big freaking Chipotle logo on the shoulder. And like it's just – I never understood, like in NASCAR, like when you like a driver, you're going to wear a jacket that says DuPont because it's Jeff Gordon. Like that made literally no sense to me. And my fear is that we're moving that direction. The NBA started it with some jersey patches. I get it. They're there to make money. I trust me. I get that part entirely. But there's just some things that I wonder how much the mainstream American fan will push back on.
Well, I mean, Ant touched on it a little bit there with the fact that this is going on in the middle of a pandemic. And listen, hockey, depends on its attendance to make money for the league and these teams more than the other three major North American sports. So not having fans in any of these buildings the whole second half of last year, the playoff bubble, for as long as we can see into this season, I mean, they got to make money somewhere. And if these sponsors are willing to shell it out just to put their name on a division logo, sure. Okay. Like sign me up. Listen, it's a business when it comes down to it. Yeah. Like Chris Jenkins in one of the comments here, whoring out hockey. Listen, these are tough times. And you know what? You got to do what you got to do to get through. Otherwise you're dropping the cap again, and it's going to have more of an effect on the business end of hockey.
They're very well paid whores then.
Well, I'm just going to jump in here. It's amazing. I'm following hockey since the 80s when there was nothing even on the boards, and then that started the two. And I thought it was weird at first. And they said, okay, now it's advertising. But Brian, you sort of stole my thunder saying even about international soccer or European soccer with all the teams. So there it's like commonplace. But I think hockey, it's going to be a little bit weird. But, I get it, though, too. Maybe it's be more, on the helmet, it won't be as big of a deal. But, yeah, it's definitely – it's different times, though, too. So
Roman Edward, there's nothing more hockey than be sponsored by your local discount liquor.
Perfect, Roman.
Yeah, I mean, plus
one, brother. Plus one.
You don't want it to get into comical, like a cartoonish, though, too. So I guess they have to do what they got to do, but it's maybe we'll get some new fans. Who knows? I mean, like I said, the younger generation that's into advertising, but next year you're going to have the Islanders sponsored by Twitter or something like. It's weird though. Too, but,
there was a gag going around the interwebs earlier this week where the idea was, would the Rangers buy the Islanders helmet, put the Ranger logo on it?
Funny.
By the ad. I saw that. It was funny.
I did see the new arena though too. It's pretty exciting. We're definitely looking forward to going to a game 5 minutes from where I grew up. So then next year.
Mike, thoughts?
Well, the whole advertisements on the helmets or wherever they're going to have them at. I believe the Sixers were the first team to actually have it for the NBA with StubHub. Listen, I mean, like I said, it's mainly obviously for money. It's to get their product out there. I guess it's to get new fans out there. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I mean, if they put it on the jersey, it might be a different issue. It's going to be on the helmet, right?
Yeah, the ad's going to be basically where the team logo would be on the side of the helmet.
Would you buy a real jersey if that was the case, Brian?
I mean,
had a nice Dunkin' Donuts patch on the side.
Yeah.
If it was Apple, he would.
But that's what I'm saying though. It's like I always see like soccer jerseys, right? And it'll say Bimbo on it, which I assume is some sort of baked good. I don't really know. But the point is, that's just weird.
That's not what I heard.
Well, whatever. But when you look at these and you look at these divisions here, right, where it's the Honda West Division, the Discover Central Division.
Discover's cool. It matches.
Hess would like the Marlboro North Division.
Yeah, I'm sure they made it match that way. But what I'm saying is, I just want you to imagine, let's just say the Flyers win the division, right? And you walk into Wells Fargo next year, whenever we can actually go back to a building, and you see a banner hanging up there, right? And you see it in green with a Mass Mutual logo because the Flyers won the Mass Mutual East Division. Like, you're going to look at that like,
that's fine.
Flyers don't win.
I highly doubt that'll be the case. I highly doubt they're going to put the
I wouldn't
company name on the banner.
I don't want to wear. These are two completely separate things.
Brian, if the Flyers had Starbucks as their thing, would you buy a jersey?
No.
And put
I have
on it.
I have a Flyers jersey. It
Losers in 75
on the back, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be okay with that for a while.
If any team had the Apple logo, would you buy one?
Maybe. Well, I had.
There you go.
Maybe. We mentioned the flat cap. We mentioned again, and that I think of everything else moving forward is going to have a huge impact on the larger markets in the league. And I say that because when you are signing long-term deals, like, I don't know, the one that the Rangers gave Artemi Panarin at $11.5 million a year, you're doing that with the assumption that the cap is going to have a steady increase, that you're going to get some of that money back to be able to use on other players. Now, that's not happening. So when you look around the league and you see these teams that, of the teams that are going to be most impacted by a flat cap, I have to tell you, the first and foremost one is the Rangers to me, because you're having these young players come up that are going to come off their ELCs, and guys like Mika Zibanejad who will need a deal all at the same time. And there's only so much money to go around. And I think I'm curious to see if what the players expect in contracts also goes down because the cap's not going up. When Connor McDavid signs this massive, massive deal, again, it's under the assumption and the pretense that the cap is going to continue to rise. And at some point with a new TV deal, it will. But in the short term, I think some of your major market teams might be losing players they don't want to lose because they just can't keep them under cap. The question then becomes do these smaller market teams then maintain internal caps where they say, hey, we're not going over 70 million because we know we're not making in gate, and we're just not going to go over that. It's fascinating from that standpoint. I don't know. It's not good for the Rangers. It's not good for it's not good for the Islanders, Matt, because they're up against the cap too, which we'll talk about when we go through the Islanders. It's not good for anybody, but other than the Rangers, because I brought them up, which teams do you envision being the most impacted?
Tampa Bay.
Good point.
They have a lot of money invested, and they're going to have to sign guys like Cirelli, Sergachev. They have some big guys they got to sign shortly, and it's about $76 million right now. I think they're up against the cap, so it's not going to be good. And I also think the Blues too. Mm-hmm. They already lost Pietrangelo, and you could obviously see that they couldn't sign him. So,
well, they did go get Torrey Krug. So they had the money. I don't think they wanted necessarily to commit that kind of money to Pietrangelo, which is 30 years old. I mean, Vegas I do
agree with the Islanders, though. I do agree with the Islanders too. How about Tampa Bay? Toronto.
I absolutely.
That was the team I was going to say, Mike, because
you got
they're already top heavy as it is with the contracts they've given out. And now with the flat cap, I mean, they could be in trouble where they might have to. Yeah, I mean, you name all the stars on their team, and you know what? Their depth is lacking as it is.
Yeah.
And now you got this. It's the top stars are going to have to really carry that team, and they're not going to have any depth whatsoever.
But I'm curious to see if we don't see more short-term deals, NBA style, right now, because they're going to want to wait it out until things get better.
Right.
Yeah,
so, Look at Taylor Hall, for example, took a 1-year deal in Buffalo.
That's true. But, I mean, I think Buffalo, if anybody's, has one of the biggest impacts. Because number one, they're not a big market, and number two, they're in New York. But on the flip side of this, how many players have gone to the Rangers simply because they want to play for the Rangers? They want to play in New York. I think guys take pay cuts just to go there. And I think the same thing, like you said, with Zibanejad. Maybe he takes a pay cut to stick around, knowing that he's got the best chance to win there. I just don't think it's all about just, everybody's going to go to the Florida Panthers now. That's just how I look at it. But
what's interesting is I'm curious to see if some of these smart teams with cap space, like in Detroit, like in Ottawa, decide to start weaponizing this. Hey, we'll take your bad contract. Give us a first-round pick.
Yeah. Right.
Remember, it's how Tara Vinen got to Carolina because they had to get under the cap. Yeah. And you've seen, I mean, Toronto sent a 1 with Patrick Marleau to the Hurricanes, who bought him out. He ended up back with San Jose. But you have to somehow, get kind of, creative with everything with salary cap sometimes. And I think you're going to see more and more of that, frankly. And, to Xavier's point, I have some long-term concerns given his age when he's going to need this deal. We're going to talk about the Rangers in a minute here, but it's fair. I would be curious to see if some of these guys take shorter-term deals because they want to get paid when the time is going to be right to get paid. You can commit to something right now, and then 3 years later, you're very much underpaid because the cap went up after we get to the other side of this. And I think it's going to be very fascinating. Before we get into our specific team to go a little bit deeper, the talk around the league right now is a couple of guys who went very high in the 2016 draft, right behind Austin Matthews, Patrick Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois. They have pretty much are both looking for greener pastures. They both are looking to swap to a different team, despite the fact that Dubois just signed a 2-year deal this week. I think it's $5 million a year. Laine's got a couple years left of team control, but he's 22 years old, which is wild if you think about it. That they're looking to move on to either bigger stages or different teams. So I want to go around the room here. Do either of them get traded this year? Which again, there's complications with that? And if so, where do you see them going? Anyone want to take that?
Well, neither is happy. So, I mean, it's not like they're asking to be traded pretty much. So, I mean, I have Line on my team, so hopefully he goes to somebody who's halfway decent. But, I believe he was in trade rumors last year to go to the Flyers and a bunch of other teams. So, this isn't new for him. Listen, they not that they're stacked, but they have guys on their team too. Connor, Scheifele, they got guys on their team too. They're going to have to re-sign at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier about like we talked about the flat with the Islanders too, and that's why we'll get into about Barzal and Pulak. But if they don't re-sign him, I mean, maybe Lamoriello pulls off some type of trade. I guess. I mean, really, I would love to see him take a stab at it because haven't really. You mentioned earlier, like who would affect it? It would affect the Islanders with the cap, but guess what? They have most of their team, and I know they overachieved, and I'll get into that last year. But they really didn't make any big moves. So in a way that they're sort of, I don't say standing pat, but I don't know if they could free up some money or to make a trade, or if they don't sign one of their two big stars, maybe they go after a guy like that.
I think Luc Dubois is just a perfect fit, Brian, for the Rangers. I really do. Slides right into that center spot that we talk about all the time.
Oh.
It's just a matter of being able to afford him. Maybe he does like a 2-year deal in the beginning. Who knows? Something like that. Obviously, Tortorella has the connection with the Rangers and the front office. As far as Line goes, I definitely think he's going to be the first to go, probably before Dubois, or Luc Dubois. But I just don't see where he's the best fit. To be honest with you, I don't see a team that. I mean, any team could use him, but where's the best fit for him? I don't know.
Listen, the Rangers absolutely have connections to Columbus. I mean, again, they acquired Rick Nash from Columbus. They sent Marian Gaborik to Columbus. John Davidson spent time there, obviously as team president before coming back here. So if there's anybody there, I mean, listen, the connection brought Panarin here too. I mean, they were here at the same time. It does seem like natural partners, and I don't want to get too far into the Rangers, but they have obviously a deep enough prospect system that they can deal from it, to help the team now. It's just, again, the curiosity is, and you can have two centers needing large deals in 2 years, and it's definitely going, to add up quickly for sure. And I think Line A, and Xavier says Line A fits in Florida. Line A fits wherever I think the team's willing to take the risk that he's not going to need all this money, because the thing about the Flyers is, we say all the time, and we're going to get to the Flyers, but my chief criticism of the entire team is none of the system just shoots out at me, this is a star player, this is a foundational player. Nice players, good players. I like a lot of them and everything that they bring to the table. Don't get me wrong, but there's no Artemi Panarin, there's no franchise winger center. I mean, there's guys who are good players, very good players, but not foundational guys, which we'll get to all that. So Line A makes some sense there, and they have a deep enough system to do it. But then again, you're not only are you giving up the capital, then you are giving the contract in a cap situation where you only have so much money. And we'll talk about the Flyers cap. I think they're hitting a wall with that, proverbially, pretty soon here. So we'll get things started. We are Ranger, Islander, and Flyer fans in this group, so we're going to be spending a little bit of time talking about each of them, a little bit interview style. We'll just start peppering each other with questions. I guess I'll just go first, so I will leave it up to the board. Anything you would like to ask my opinion on regarding the Broadway Blue Shirts, I will answer anything and everything that you send my way.
How many Alex Lafreniere jerseys do you have currently?
Three. Royal blue, white, and the reverse retro.
That's troubling.
Why?
Guy hasn't played a game yet.
Hashtag disposable income. Next question.
Stupid.
Any shot of him being a bust.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right off.
Any shot of him being a bust.
I don't. Well, scouting generally the last 10 to 15 years, I think has gotten up tremendously. Lafreniere being the guy, in hockey, I think hockey and sometimes in football, sometimes in basketball, but more so in hockey, you have guys that are preordained as the number one pick in their drafts. Like you go back to the Taylor Hall years and the Austin Matthews years, even the Jack Hughes a year ago. These are guys who were the number one pick years leading into their draft. And that's what Lafreniere was. So listen, there were no questions he was going to go number one. Anybody who said that, could they take Byfield? No, they're never taking Byfield. It just, not that Byfield wouldn't fill an immediate need, don't get me wrong, but you don't pass up that kind of talent. So do I think he's going to be a bust? No. Is there a chance that he doesn't, hit generational status? Sure. You're asking a lot, but I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm remotely upset that the ping pong ball came out my way. I mean, at all. So, comments coming in. Lafreniere, good, great purchase. Alex from our friends over at What a Dump Hockey Talk. Check their group out. Would the Rangers put Zibanejad in the first round for Dubois? I wouldn't do that, and I don't think they would need to do that. I think Zibanejad would be a similar contract problem for them too. So I don't think that really helps them. D pairs, they've moved D'Angelo to the top left to play with Jacob Trouba. Fox and Ryan Lincoln will remain a pair. I think he's 26 now. The third pair is an issue. I'd like to see Keandre Miller make it. I'm not going to hold my breath. It's a weird year anyway. It's still growing pains for the team.
All right, Brian. So what's your biggest concern of the Rangers?
They have no second line center.
Okay.
Because everything else, and look, again, my expectations are, I don't care what they do this year because it's all moving in the direction I want it to go. Coming into this year, this was the last year of bad money. And if you look at the buyout money, you got Hank's buyout, Shattenkirk's buyout, Girardi's buyout, Brendan Smith's contract. This money is going to come off next year. So for the people that come and say, the buyouts were stupid, the buyouts were necessary, and it's not as if you were going to use this cap on anything else. You have guys making no money. You are the youngest team in the league. These guys are all on contracts that they're making less than $1 million a year. Everything's going to be just fine. If you're going to do it, you do it now. Again, the defense is going to take a little bit of time to come up. They have a lot of talent coming up still on D, despite the fact that I like their top four at this point. I like seeing guys like Julian Gauthier, for example, again, playing a third line role. I think it's uber talented from a first round pick. They want to see Philip Hedl take that second line center role. Right now it's Ryan Strome. They couldn't sell Ryan Strome at the deadline. They couldn't sell him before they gave him a new deal. And frankly, I think he's either going to be traded this deadline or he's going to be exposed in the expansion draft. And I'm perfectly fine with that. They are looking for someone young to take that role. If they don't get that, they haven't really drafted other guys. Elias Anderson was a complete waste at the time, waste now. That's my concern. My concern is that they're going to score goals. The defense is going to come, but they're not as for a team with that much talent to have that kind of a hole at 2C is concerning.
All right, Brian, my question for you is what kind of year do you think Capo Kakko is going to have in his second year? So
it can't be worse than last year. So he had a very tough transition coming to North America as an 18-year-old. And I think sometimes we forget when these kids are playing that they're 18 years old. They're 18-year-olds don't play pro football. They don't play pro basketball anymore. And you're coming over to a place you've never been. He was playing bottom 6 minutes. I mean, it wasn't. But at the same time, we had Steve Cornianos on, the draft analyst, and he said, you want to get these guys playing time at the pro level. It's all growth. He is penciled in right now on the second line with Ryan Strome and Artemi Panarin. So he's going to get a lot of space to do what he can do. He was the best player on the ice in that 3-game disaster against Carolina. So for what it's worth, I expect him to take a leap forward. A quantum leap? No. But I think that he's going to start to appear as this is the guy that we spent the 2 pick in the draft on, for the simple reason that he has the skill. Skill's always there, and he's got an NHL body, but now he's playing with players that don't suck. So I think he's going to be brought up by that.
You guys have 3 really good scoring lines. I mean, there's no shortage of depth. That's for damn sure. I would say probably, and I'm just kind of going off of what we were talking about earlier, I don't think Strome's a liability by any means. I just think you're looking at – I'm talking about for this year – you're looking at it more as a projection that you don't have anybody coming up that could be eventually the 2C. But Strome's by no means a liability.
But I think he's a product of Panarin. That's the thing. I think he's fool's gold. I think that there's a reason they didn't pay him more than 2 years, and I'm sure he wanted it. But It was your first year playing with an elite all-world left wing. So, yeah, you're going to put up assists when he's going to go score highlight reel goals. I get it. But they need to fix that piece. That's the piece I think that if that gets filled, there ain't that much left.
Well, who would you have rather have signed in hindsight, Kreider or Zibanejad?
So, well, hindsight's 2020, and I didn't know that I was going to get a left wing at the top of the draft because now I got to figure that piece of it out. And then there's talk they might move Kreider over, they might move Lafreniere over. Panarin's not getting moved. You're a stud. You stay where you are. Right. Again, now Savvy's going to say play Kreider at center. I don't think to my knowledge, he's not played center. I don't know what he did at BC. I'd have to go back and look. You could try it. I mean, listen, you could try Lafreniere at center. You could try a lot of different things, but I'm reminded of like when they went out and they signed Chris Drury and they signed Scott Gomez, and Yager couldn't play with either, and they played with Brandon Dubinsky. Like it was like a disaster, right? So it's like you have to get guys that fit. So yeah, Strome helped Panarin. Fine, whatever. I'm fine with that. It's a short term thing, but that is a long term hole they need to fill.
Realistically, what's your they're making a deep playoff run? What's your goals for winning the cup?
Time frame or this year? This year they're not getting close to.
No, time frame.
I think they're a cup contender. I think they are a legitimate cup contender within 2 seasons. I think that's when the timing is where everyone's going to come up. And again, they can expedite that by taking some of those prospects and combining them and consolidating them into immediate players, especially a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois, who fills the second line center role with a connection to John Davidson. Mm-hmm. They have, I mean, look, I'm not sitting here as a homer on my team. Don't take my word for it. Their prospect system is absolutely phenomenal. It is no worse than the second in all of hockey. So they're not all going to play here. That's just, it's not going to happen. And you start identifying where your strengths are and you trade for your weaknesses. They traded Joey Keane, who was a third round find on right defense, where they're very deep. They went and got a guy like Julien Gauthier who fit what they needed at the time. So you're going to see more of that. And as guys become available that want to come to New York, and for the reasons that you said, they want to go try to take a run with this team, pending cap, obviously, they have the cupboard to put it together to make a deal. Vitaly Kravtsov and a D prospect get me Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm signing up for that list. I love Kravtsov, but you can't play them all. Right. It's not feasible. So convince them and bring them in.
Okay.
I got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Better goalie this year, Igor Shesterkin or Carter Hart?
Carter Hart's going to get more support.
Nice jersey. Yes.
The Flyers' defense from a defensive standpoint is better than the Rangers' defense from a defensive standpoint. The Rangers' defense is very active. They're going to join the rush. A guy like Tony DeAngelo is frankly a wing playing defense. I mean, I think he's a very good offensive force back there. I'm not going to say he's Brian Leetch, but he's of that ilk. Although Leetch could play defense at least. Shesterkin is a volume guy, whereas Hart is not. If you go back to the Flyers last year, I mean, they did a very nice job of keeping keeping their possession up and keeping their shot count down. He was very good when he had to be good. I think the sky's the limit for him. But Shesterkin's, look, it's a 12 game sample size, right? So, like, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be unbelievable, but like he's done this everywhere else. He did this in the KHL. He did it in the AHL. He's a volume guy. A 940 save percentage. I mean, look, that's hard to do. But how can you? They're going to end up going from Henrik Lundqvist to Igor Shesterkin. I mean, you cannot be any. And this was the 2014 draft in Philly where they took him. Where I was there. I even had any idea at the time. So you got to love him. I mean, I think that between him and Georgiev, I mean, there was obviously a reason Hank's going to go because A, contract, and B, there's no fit. They're not going to roll 3 guys. And Carter Hart's got more NHL experience. I mean, I need to see more of Igor first, but I mean, I've seen nothing that makes me think he's not going to be an absolute player.
It's like going from Favre to Rodgers.
Hopefully with more championships at some point.
Is he getting majority? You think of they're going to,
yeah, 60-40. I think you'll probably see. Look, Georgiev's very good, and don't be surprised. I mean, they have a deep goaltending pipeline as well. Guys like Tyler Wall, Adam Huska. They drafted Lindblom a couple of years ago. They just drafted Dylan Garand, who was one of the Canada goalies this year in the draft. So, they keep rotating that. I think they're keeping their options open just in case, which is fine because if you hit a goalie, you can get paid before them in trade. This is going to be Igor's team. So I mean, look. Last year, if he doesn't get in the car accident, they make the playoffs. Whether I want them to or not, they do. He was that good. The question then becomes, can he sustain that in a full season? We're going to see. It's a weird year. He's going to get playing time. I think the world of him. I think he has all the potential. Anybody else?
We're good.
Good.
Enough of the Rangers.
Great, grand, wonderful. Kevin Kaufman, the opportunity to see what fits and works. I agree. Rangers have 3 good goalies in the system. They do. I was asked about, will Jacques Martin help the defense? Yeah. Addition by subtraction. Lindsey Ruff's an asshole. Bye. Anyway.
Where did Ruff go? To New Jersey?
New Jersey.
Yeah.
New Jersey.
It's a recycled coach.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Gotta love it. Next up for 60% of the board, the Philadelphia Flyers. They found their way into the proverbial 1 seed in that round robin last year. They did get to the second round. They did fall to
gold.
So I will kick this question off here. I wasn't, from a Flyers fan perspective, I was not upset cap-wise that Matt Niskanen retired, but it was a very surprising move. I didn't really foresee it coming. I thought last year that he really steadied their defense. AV likes to have that veteran guy back there that he can rely on, and Niskanen played that role for him very, very well. What is your concern level that he kind of just up and quit?
Who, Niskanen? What's my concern level about him? Nothing. I figure you probably have no clue what's going to happen this year if you're looking at it from the summer, from Niskanen's perspective. Is there going to be a season? Is there not going to be a season? Who knows what's going on with his family? I mean, they don't really get too into personal situations in the NHL, but just I guess you figure it was a good time to go out, just a crazy offseason or postseason, and then just I don't know. Maybe if he gets the itch down the road, he can always come back. But I don't think there was any concern.
I kind of liked it, actually, that he's not here anymore. It opens up the door for Haig and some of the younger kids to actually play all the time now. I know Niskanen was a veteran, 33 years old, whatever he was, but and this retirement that he has is going to open the door for Gostisbehere this year. They have him on the first set of defensemen this year with Provorov right now, and they're apparently saying that he looks phenomenal right now. These last 2 weeks.
It can't get worse.
Yeah. So hopefully they go, as far as that number 1 defense pairing, if that could work out, that would be a very, very good, especially offensive team that they have back there. They have Haig projected on the 3rd line right now with Gustafsson. So on the 3rd pairing, which isn't terrible.
There's your guy you're talking about, Gustafsson. That's your veteran defenseman.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was just going to bring him up. Listen, as far as the money goes, him retiring kind of gave you a little flexibility. So, look, you're going to miss that kind of defensive presence. But again, like Ant just said, you bring in a guy like Gustafsson who will be in the room with these guys. You saw what Niskanen could do for Provorov and how he helped elevate his game. Gustafsson can kind of bring that veteran presence to defense pairings. And listen, they still have guys in the system, so I'm not concerned about it. Again, him retiring. Listen, what was he? 32, 33 years old, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it gives us cap flexibility. So I'm not concerned about it. It is what it is. The guy had a good career. He was contender to last year of his career, and that's that.
What's all 3 of your expectations on Lindblom back for a full season? What do you numbers wise, or just how does he come back?
Well, that's another guy. They have him on the first line right now. He's on the wing with Couturier and Konechny. So that's the pairing that they had. I mean, listen, he's got talent. We've seen it. He hasn't really played much, to be honest with you. So we don't really know what to expect from him. But if they have him on a first line role with Giroux playing that bottom wing on the top 6, the problem is Giroux's always played with Konechny. And Giroux's always played with Couturier and Voracek, really. So this will be a change for both of them.
I love Lindblom. I think obviously he embodies what you look for in a hockey player, number 1. I mean, we said at the time, Brian, that was a steal for Hextall in the 5th round. And he's just going to keep getting better, obviously stronger. He dealt with a lot. And he's got the perfect situation here, I think, with, like he said, with Velarde said, with Couturier and Konechny. It's a great line. They do a lot of different things. And I'm just, one, happy he's back, and two, just think he gives them so much extra juice. Seeing him on the ice, I know it didn't quite work out in Game 7 last year, but we'll talk about that later.
To Tom O'Neill's question, are they asking him to do too much in the first line role coming back the way he is?
I don't think so.
No, because listen, they're so deep. Listen, like Brian, you said, they don't have that star power, but they're going to rely on their depth to win games, okay? Especially, you got this 56-game season here where you're constantly going up against the same opponents game after game after game. You're going to need the depth, and that's what the Flyers are going to rely on to win these games this year. That's what they did last year, too. Listen, if you happen to get the Lindblom that was a stud first half of last year, then you could put him first, second line. If he struggles, you can put him on the third, fourth line because you have guys that can step up and give you a good percentage of what Lindblom gives you. There's going to be a lot of different line combinations this year, and so if Lindblom is he gives you what he gave you the first half of last year, great. If he doesn't, you put him on third line, even fourth line if you have to. Let him work it out, and just continue with his development. It's fine.
Did you ever see?
I don't think we have to lean on him at all.
Did you ever see a third line with a 16.12 AAV? That's Riemsdyk, $7 million. Voracek on the other side with 8.2, and Nolan Patrick's in the middle of that right now with 874,000. So imagine that. That's technically what they have going in the third line right now.
Jeez.
If you look back at the playoffs in the bubble, right? I think we can all agree that they struggled much more with Montreal than we thought they would. And they barely they got out, don't get me wrong, but they barely got by a Montreal team who kind of blew their load, getting past Pittsburgh. They came up against an Islander team that I thought they had more talent than, but I think, as much as I malign Barry Trotz, and I don't shy away from that, but he owned AV in that series. I think coaching was really the difference in that series because I don't think AV adjusted well. I say that to say this. It seems as though last year they struggled when they had to play the same teams over and over again when it got to the playoffs. So in this format where you're playing the same teams over and over again, where the tendencies are very clear and you know what they're going to do. Listen, Alain Vigneault's been in this division now for 4 years with the Rangers and 5 years with the Rangers and now here, right? So the question then becomes, what are they in the regular season this year against repetitive opponents when the last time we kind of saw that, they struggled with, frankly, teams that they should have been better against?
Well, I think we've talked about this many times. The concern with Vigneault coming here was that every team he has taken has gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. And I just have a feeling it's going to be the same way with the Flyers this year. One new division, obviously, with, like you said, playing the same team over and over again, or teams. I just think they take a step backwards this year. I really do. And we'll get into our predictions later. But that's the most troubling thing for me is Vigneault isn't a great adjuster. And like we've talked about, his teams, they never get better. They only get worse. So that's very troubling.
I think this year not him essentially, but they have a goalie this year, and I think that makes a huge difference. And the Flyers never had good defensemen in all the years. They could buy all these players and buy all these superstars. They'll bring in Jagers and all these guys who could score, even though it was at the end of his career. They never had a good defense, though. I feel that they're young on defense and they're very good defensively, and that's what AV prides his systems on. So.
Yeah, but they looked really slow against against the Islanders. The Islanders just completely outworked them, outskated them. I mean, Barzal, he skated circles around these guys. And now, granted, they're young and they're going to keep getting better, but they really need to work on their skating if they're going to be top of the division.
Question coming in from Kevin Coughlin: does Cam York break the line and make the roster?
The Flyers have never really brought up young kids like that, so I can't really see that happening.
Probably next year, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. No, Cam's. He just got done the World Juniors. He needs some time off. I don't think he's going to play this year. Not for us. Maybe Michigan. I don't know what they're doing, but
Tom O'Neill asking, how many games do you think Elliott plays?
a lot.
Yeah, I'd say probably 15 to 17 games out of 56.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Every game's important, but you can't play Carter Hart every game. You're going to burn the kid
A lot
out.
of back-to-backs.
Kevin Coughlin, my apologies. I saw the comment come in. I'll have to remember that. Matt.
Come on, Brian. Idiot.
Yeah. Matt, your question?
Well, I was actually going to ask about Elliott. Is there any shot that their third string goalie Lyon gets a shot again this year or no?
Not barring injury.
Nah. I'd rather see Sandstrom or Ustimenko play. I don't think Lyon has anything. He's been around too long. I think we were at the Rangers game when he beat them. Good old Alex Lyon.
Alex Lyon. Yeah, the organizational depth at goaltending is like, I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see where that goes. And you mentioned this, AV teams historically, they peak their first year and then it kind of goes downhill from there. You said it was a concern of yours. I've lived it. I think the team that actually,
I know about it.
I think the team actually that made the finals wasn't as good as the team that actually made the finals. The second team was actually better than the 14 team and fell short. So that's, I guess my experience there. Nolan Patrick. So look, feel good story. Obviously you wish the kid well. You hope he comes back from the migraines and everything like that. He's looked okay, looked pretty good. In these scrimmages, you're coming into the season seeing anything he does is a plus. Are you coming in with any kind of expectation? Do you think that my criticism of the Kevin Hayes signing a year ago, which I thought would stunt center positions for Patrick and/or Morgan Frost, comes to fruition?
Let me ask you this: do you think they knew something about Patrick last year, which is why they signed Kevin Hayes? Legitimate question. They may have known.
Oh.
That could have factored in, and then I don't know. Maybe.
I guess it's a fair point, but that's you're making a 7-year commitment based on what you think might be a 1-year problem.
But that's what Hayes' rate was. Apparently, that was the going rate. I don't know, but whatever you get out of him is just a bonus because I think they're strong down the middle, even in the rest of the organization beyond the NHL. I keep hearing something in the background. I keep thinking somebody's talking. Is there a TV?
It's your echo.
No, it's an echo somewhere.
Unbelievable. So it's my fault.
Yeah, according to Kevin, I read that story as well. Big Sam is playing winger now, and he that's not the person you really want to collide with yesterday. They had a collision. He went off to the bench. He put his head down for a little while, but he ended up being okay. So I guess that's a good sign. If you're going to run into somebody, you don't want to run into him, though.
Can Morin do anything right?
Well, as long as he doesn't tear his knee up again.
He was a pick of the old administration, and I think that they're just trying to find anything. Matt, any last Flyers question?
No, just it's going to be interesting to see like these teams, that just hustle as we get into the Islanders, and just I'm looking forward to this shortened season in a way, but the division's just going to be tough. A grind every night.
Moving on to the New York Islanders, Matthew. This is your team. Listen, they made a relatively surprise run to the conference finals a year ago and then ran into the buzzsaw that was Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't think there's any issue losing to that team. I thought that team was the best team in the conference most of the year, despite their tough start. I think what's hanging over this team right now is the Matt Barzal contract situation. I think Islander fans get a little PTSD sometimes when they think back to John Tavares because they've been through this now. A guy who they took very high, who captained the team, led the team, face of the team, and then can't get a contract done, and then he leaves to go somewhere else. I don't think that happens with Barzal, but what is your concern level of that happening with Barzal?
Well, like you mentioned about the cap and everything, and that's why with the trade, which I know you discussed with me once or twice about the Taves trade, I thought it wasn't the worst thing, because they picked up 2 second rounders. I mean, they didn't get a first rounder, but moved one of their key pieces on defense. But they really have to sign Barzal and Polak though to have any type of consistency, and really it's his franchise. I mean, I told you this before. How many series did the Islanders win with Tavares? They only won one playoff series. So in a way, I was hoping they would do a big trade. He gave them lip service saying he was coming back. We all know he wanted to go to Toronto too. Where he grew up and in his country. So they have to sign Barzal too to give them any legitimate shot for long term. And I just hopefully it's not a cap issue. Like I said, the good news is they're consistent. They don't have any big, just talked about the Flyers with their lines. The Islanders actually do play 4 lines, and you saw that in the playoffs where they'll put their 4th line out there. In some series over the past 2 years, they've been their best line. Not high scoring, but they did actually come through with some big goals. So they basically, I think they're gonna take a step back. Obviously, finishing being in the top 4 last year, but so they're just well coached and. I am concerned too if Lamoriello doesn't get something done soon, not tomorrow, but that could be the sign of the times too, and have another Tavares debacle on our hands.
Matt, I'm interested to see how the Islanders parlay their playoff success, but the goaltending. You had Varlamov there, and he was stellar for the most part, especially in the playoffs. But there was a couple games where he kind of melted down, and you had Richard Grice there. He's now in Detroit. Are you confident that Varlamov can have that type of run in him again?
Well, that's what comes with a lot of these teams, and obviously goaltending. Grice was more than capable of backup, and we saw that coming into
great against the Flyers.
Yeah, but now, the good news is that even though they lost Grice, they picked up Sorokin as their backup, I guess, is the number 2. So another potentially capable goaltending. But I mean, yeah, I'm not as concerned with goaltending as I am with scoring and some of their other needs too for more scoring. As Brian said, you're not going to beat teams 3-2 every night or 2-1, which they did. They had one of the lowest goals against in the league. So I still think he has a solid year. Shortened season might help him, but Sorokin may be playing, like I said, 20 to 25 games. Who knows? He might even do a 50-50 split. I mean, look at that move that Trotz, speaking of goaltending, he put Grice in game 6 or 7 in the series or 2, and then they came out with a win. So I wouldn't put it past anything too, but the goaltending has to be solid. The same standard as they had last year to give them any legitimate shot in making the playoffs just in general. But I have more concerns elsewhere. I said with scoring and just obviously signing Barzal too, because he looked like lights out there in the playoffs, as you guys saw that.
What's the deal with Joshua Ho-Sang? Seems like every year this kid's given a chance and he stinks. He's another one. If you watch a couple of his games, which it did, it's going back 2 years. I think he has more of an attitude problem. I don't know if it's work ethic or just attitude, but the kid's got talent too. He played a couple games where the puck didn't leave his stick. He's almost like Barzal light, if I want to say that too. And just if not even faster. So the kid does have talent. He just hasn't got, I don't think, like a fair shake. And maybe it is something to do with his mental. His mentality towards the game, or just an attitude, because I know they really haven't. He's in and out of the lineup a couple games. So I saw him play good. Then he played limited minutes on like the 3rd or 4th line, and then he was sent back down. So they did resign him though too. So I mean, that's, I guess, a positive. But he's one of my dark horses to try to break the lineup this year, along with I mentioned the lines are pretty much the same. Michael Ducall has to have a decent season. He's the other dark horse, but the other capable guys that they might talk about bringing up, I've been reading about, is Kiefer Bellows and Oliver Wahlstrom, though, too. So if they bring up those guys, turn to anything. I mean, I remember Bellows on Team USA team a couple of years ago, and so he's got that pedigree.
And Wahlstrom.
Right. So, Bellows is one that rings out there because, I mean, his father back in the playing back in the 80s and the into the 90s. But it's just they have to have everyone has to play up to the potential. I know Brian didn't like the signing of Pajot though too with the contract that they got, but at least they signed the player that they traded for. They traded away Taves though too, but got 2 second-rounders. So Boychuk's gone though too. You got other guys that you forget about the wasted money that Ladd even came back to play a playoff game with too. So I don't expect much from him, but they do have it's a weird it's almost like the Flyers with the depth of their lines. But they don't have any standouts besides Barzal from the scoring aspect.
Matt, you're the only Islanders fan I know that I've ever met.
There's only about 12. So
yeah, but seriously, when they go back to the island, you're going to see. I mean, it was a joke. Like it's still a joke in like Brooklyn though too. I mean, the old Coliseum though too, and even like I'm glad I got to take my father into a game there. He said it just reminded me of the whole spectrum. The concourses were narrow. You had the orange, the fake orange tile though too. It was like another spectrum though too, and where you're like on top of the ice though too with a limited capacity of they extended to like 14 or 15, actually 16,000. But them playing on the island though too, even near Belmont Park, it would be like sort of like a Meadowlands type complex. The arena looks awesome. It has that brick that almost looks like a old Wrigley Field or Camden Yards type of skeleton on the outside. So I'm excited to see that. And again, I wish my dad was around to see it as well, because it's literally 5 minutes from where I grew up. And I'm excited to get to a game or two next year and see what they can do. Like I said, they overachieved last year. I really am not a big superstitious person, but that run really, I believe, was from my dad and my uncle, who both passed away this past year. But they're hard and gritty. I mean, it was funny, our household with my wife being a Flyers fan, it was tough watching though too, and Rock and my sons rooting, go back and forth. But that just showed the determination, the way they were hitting, and just like you said, out skating. Anthony, you said they're out skating, out hustle the Flyers, and that came down to coaching. Like I said, I was never a big fan of Trotz until he's the Islanders coach now, and I know Brian would probably disagree, but he's got his system works for that team, and again, I knew they had a shot against all these teams except Tampa Bay. They had to play lights out, and again, a break or two here. The series might have been a little bit different, but they had to play perfect, and it just wasn't meant to be.
But for a team with the cap problems that they have, they should have better players. And when I look at the way that the roster is constructed, I mean, they literally have 6 forwards making more than $5 million a year. None of them is named Matt Barzal, and that's it just blows my mind. But one of them is Andrew Ladd, and I hear you on that. Listen, Ladd's a bad contract. It was bad the moment it was signed, and you would agree with that. But right now, they only have about $4 million in cap space, which is about half of what you would need to bring Barzal back. They're going to have to swing a deal here. So you can bring up, the Bellows and the Walsoms of the system, but don't be surprised if they have to move one of them out with a contract to get the cap space needed to sign Matt Barzal before the season starts in a week, because he's not signed. And it's a big problem, and it's a deceptively old team. I mean, their average age at forwards over 29. And I think that it's look, the Pajot thing. My problem with it is you're giving up the assets for a guy that I just didn't think. I think on a good team's a third line player.
Yeah, but he fits Trotz's system so well.
Right, and that's what he is. He's actually look at his line mates. The projected line with Komarov, the two, who's not a big scorer, and he's getting up there in age. And Dalcol is one of the younger players. Their fourth line you're not going to touch. But you mentioned trading pieces. I would actually I say this for the last couple of years. He's actually played a lot better last year, but I wouldn't be opposed to moving a guy like Bailey, though, too, who had a good season, to a team, a contender that's looking for a guy that's a big assist guy, though, too, or even Brock Nelson, or Beauvillier, any one of their second line guys, even Eberle. I mean, that trade you mentioned Strome earlier with the Rangers, the Islanders, I got the better of the deal. Strome I didn't like at all. They basically that was a swap of players that were underachieving with Eberle for Strome, so it worked out in their favor this time. But I wouldn't mind moving. I said Bailey, Brock Nelson, like I said, or Beauvillier, one of those three guys that had good seasons last year. If you're going to move a piece and to try to get something of value in return, that's the way they can hopefully do that. So,
any other Islander questions for Matt?
Islanders questions out there. I know everyone. Nothing going
I
once.
just wanted to tell you that you're basically like a
unicorn
child amongst Islanders fans to us.
Well, I said I've been to games at the Wells Fargo, and just Flyers fans have razzed me with my Trottier jersey though too. So it comes with the territory though too. But it's just definitely looking forward to the season and see what they could do, and hopefully get to the playoffs somehow.
We'll start with the Mass Mutual East Division. So stupid. Go around the horn here. Give me your best team, your worst team, overrated team, underrated team. Who are your 4 playoff teams, and who do you think comes out of this group? Brian Hess.
Best team in the division is the Boston Bruins, and the worst team is the New Jersey Devils. My overrated team is the Penguins, and my underrated team is let's go with the Rangers. And then my 4 teams that make it are the Bruins, Caps, Flyers, and I really think Pittsburgh hits a wall here. Listen, Crosby, Malkin, the story goes on and on. They keep pushing Gensel. They keep pushing it back, trying to extend this window. Eventually, they're going to fall off a cliff here, right? Is it going to be this year? I'd rather be a year early on them doing that than a year late. So I'm picking the Penguins. Listen, maybe that loss to Montreal, inexplicable loss to Montreal in the playoffs last year, is a sign of the things to come. But I think it's going to be this year. They kind of hit that wall, and I'm debating between Islanders and Rangers for that 4th spot, and I'll go with the Rangers.
Drew Tram wants me to answer his question about Happy Gilmore, who
I had somebody with a skate.
A phenomenal Boston Bruin. I think he'd actually help the team right now. I think that he should be the captain instead of Patrice Bergeron now that Chara is gone. But yes, most time spent in a penalty box is definitely something to be proud of.
There you go. All right, I guess I'll go. East Division, best and worst. So you want the best team in the division, you're telling me, or just the top 4?
No, your best team, your worst team. You can, just general.
So should I be a homer, or what should I do? If I think the Flyers are the best team in the division?
You've been one for as long as I've known you.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's not true.
Yeah. All right, I'm going with the Flyers as the best team. I'm going with the Devils as the worst team. My overrated is the Boston Bruins. I believe that they were hit pretty hard this offseason. They had losing parts on their defense. They were facing a lot of injuries to their star players. I don't even think that they make the top 4 in this division. I got Flyers, Islanders, Capitals, Penguins.
Wow. Wowee.
Who's your winner?
I haven't thought that far. I'm going with the Islanders.
Wowie.
All right. I'll take it from here. Best team's the Capitals. I think they have the most talent. I think they have a really good goaltender and a really good coach. The thing with Lavi is he obviously comes in and the teams are good right out of the gate, and then they stink, just like Vigna. They fall off a cliff. I think your worst team's the Devils. I think your most overrated team, sadly, is the Flyers. I just think that this is going to be a bear of a division for them, and there's a lot of moving parts, and they had a long run last year. Some guys getting older, and I just think it's a bad combo. But I'm not saying they're not making the playoffs, but I just think they're overrated. Underrated is definitely the Rangers. I think they're kind of that hidden gem in the whole entire East, well, whatever you want to call it now. And then obviously my playoff teams are going to be the Bruins, Caps, Flyers, and Rangers. I think Penguins fall off a cliff, like Hess was saying. I think they're old. I think they've dealt with a lot of injuries in the last couple of years with Crosby missing time and Gensel and Malkin and everybody. And I think the winner is going to be the Caps.
Well, I'm getting a lot of flack over here on the message board over here, but guess what? You want to hear a prediction from 2000? What was it, last year? Hess? They want to hear my predictions for the Cody Parkey hitting the goalpost?
Yeah, you hit it right on.
Hey, you never know. Maybe I'm better at football than hockey.
2 years ago.
You double doinked it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Over 4,000 views on Facebook, Drew Trammell. Eat it.
So I will go next. And as I said, this is going to shock you with some of these picks. And I'm glad no one actually mentioned this one team. But best team in the East, I still say, is the Bruins. Worst team is the Devils, obviously. Overrated. I'm going with, like I said, it's a big high, and I watched them play enough that I'm going to say overrated is the Capitals this year. Underrated is the Sabres. I mean, no one mentioned Taylor Hall, Jack Eichel. That team's going to make a run for it. I have this weird feeling. So my teams coming out of the East are the Bruins, Sabres, Flyers, and the Penguins, not the Islanders. Like I said, they had to play. They overachieved last year. The Rangers, like you said, a year or two away, I still think, from making any type of run. I could have put anyone, the Penguins, the Capitals, the Islanders in there. But the Sabres, I really think, are going to surprise some teams this year with that big pickup. And Hall really is going to have a phenomenal year, too, especially if they pair him up with Eichel. And even if it's a one-year deal, I think he signs longer term after he has a big year this year. So coming out of there, I'm going to go with it's not the sexy pick, the two, but I'll go with the Bruins, the two, just from, like I said, as they're getting older, they're not as old as the Penguins. And with that pedigree in that team, and Raskin, it's still as their goaltender, their netminder, I think it comes down to goaltending in some of these teams. And I really think they, another year season, another year getting older, but I think they're gonna prove some people wrong this year. And the shortened season definitely going to help out some of the veterans with a little bit more rest.
I think the best team here, and I say it because I think that the most complete team is the Boston Bruins, but I think that my concern is you did lose two very big pieces on that defense core with Chara leaving. Even if he wasn't what he was still there. But the loss of Torrey Krug, I think, is not felt as much in the hockey world as is going to be felt by Boston. He was a phenomenal player, power play guy, very, very big force in the back end. Don't know that they had enough to replace him. That is my concern. Short of that, team has some of the best players in the division by themselves. Bergeron's phenomenal. Pasternak's phenomenal. Marchand, much you don't like him, is a very, very good player, and they're deep. They're the same team they were last year. You're getting Tuukka Rask back, so your goaltending issue is not there. They are a bit more of a veteran team, so I do have some concerns on some of these back-to-backs, but I think they're going to be okay. The worst team in the division, I do think, is New Jersey, but I don't think that's going to stick. They've actually drafted well. I give them credit for that. The issue that the Devils have is somewhat the issue that the Islanders have, that it's hard to attract free agents. So you're going to have to hit your draft picks, and you're going to have to keep them longer term. You can do that, but you don't get the luxury that some of the other teams have, like the Rangers, like the bigger markets, where they can go sign a guy because they want to play there. I think the Islanders, the Anders Lee deal was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to not getting Panarin. Neither here nor there. It's not a bad player, so it is what it is. Overrated team in the division to me, Matt, I'm going to say it's your Islanders simply because it is a system. I don't see a ton of talent on that team, and I think that can come back to bite them in a season like this where, you're playing the same teams over and over again. Whatever holes there are in that Trotz system, these teams are going to find them. I'm not saying that they're vast, but they're there. Every sport has what the defense gives you, so to speak. So, I think you're asking a lot of Sorokin, and but I think the talent's absolutely there. I think he's right up there with Shesterkin. I think he's a long-term, a very, very big piece for the Islanders. But I do think they're overrated right now because of the run they had last year. I think they were a little bit above themselves last year, which I think you agree with. And underrated, I will also say, is the Buffalo Sabres because no one is. Look, they added Taylor Hall to a team that has Jack Eichel. I think this might be Rasmus Dahlin's breakout year from the standpoint of putting it all together. Young team, good pieces. Jeff Skinner sucks and is overpaid, but that is what it is. My four playoff teams, obviously Boston, obviously Philadelphia. Those are the two obvious ones. I will give it to Washington simply because I think that Ovechkin will will them there. I'm not as high on them as some other people are, but I do think they're good enough to get into the top four. And then that fourth one, I know you say Pittsburgh's going to hit a wall. Well, they're going to hit a wall, but they're going to be good enough to be fourth. I don't think it's a Crosby-Malkin-led team anymore. I think they're obviously very important players, but I think that you're going to see Gensel, when healthy, take a big, huge role. I like Brian Rust quite a bit. They're going to need the defense to play, though. But I think that they're going to those are my playoff teams. I think Boston comes out of it because I haven't seen anybody beat them yet. It's like for real. So until they get beat by a team in this group, I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt. The Discover Central Division, it's an interesting cast of characters because you have teams that were in the East, teams that were in the West, teams that were in the Atlantic, teams that were in the Metro, teams that were all over the place. It's a very weird mix of teams. Mike Velarde, give me your best, worst, over, underrated playoffs and your winner from this group.
Tampa Bay will be the best. I think that the Blackhawks will actually be the worst in this division. I think Detroit's going to leap above them a little bit. Overrated. I'm actually going to go with the Florida Panthers as the most overrated. Underrated. I don't know really if they're underrated, but I think Carolina is underrated in that division. Playoffs, top 4, Tampa Bay, Dallas, Carolina, Nashville. I think Columbus is on the outside looking in this year. And what's the last one? Winner? Tampa Bay.
Matt?
Yeah, a little bit different take on here. I agree with the best team obviously is Tampa Bay. The worst team is Chicago. What they're dumping, losing Sada too in a trade. Overrated. I'm gonna go with. I was flip flopping between. I'll go back to like Carolina. I just don't see the depth there. Surprising the playoff teams out of there. I'm saying Tampa Bay, Dallas, Columbus, just because I love the way Columbus, again, a big like gritty team, the way they hit in every playoffs of the last 2 or 3 years, they've willed themselves to with a lot of close games and victories by just wearing down all the teams, sort of like the Islanders style. And they got to play each other, a couple of years ago. And I'm gonna still say Nashville, same thing, another like a Penguins type team, get a little bit older, but with a good goaltending behind there. I say Carolina is the team this year, outside looking in. Coming out of there, I'm going to say it's Tampa Bay. Before you continue, do you have the breakdown of when we get into like the final 4 teams? Like, is it what divisions are going up against what?
So it's 1, 4, 2, 3 based on record.
Okay.
There's no conferences.
Gotcha.
And
Me? All right. Obviously, the Lightning they're the top team in the Central Division, followed by the Red Wings being the worst. Now they're accumulating some talent. They've had some, multiple first-round picks last few years. They're getting there, but they're still a long way away. My most overrated is the Stars. I think I really just think they completely overachieved in the playoffs. To be honest, I think that team's getting old fast and not in a good way. Obviously, I think Sagan and Ben and some of those guys are they're past their peak. He has some good players on defense, and Ben Bishop's, he's getting older too, so that's going to be a tough one. Underrated, I think, is the Blue Jackets. I think they always draft well. Tortorella's a great coach, and he always gets those young players ready, and they have great goaltending. I think the playoff teams are going to be by a smidge. Carolina will make it. The Blue Jackets, the Lightning, and the Panthers, because of the common denominator there, aside from Carolina, is the goaltending. And then your winner is the Tampa Bay Lightning. No surprises.
And you kind of stole all of my thunder all in one big fell swoop right there. Man, Tampa's the best. Detroit, listen, full rebuild still. They're putting it together, but they're still the worst team in this division by far. Overrated. I agree with Ant. Stars. Listen, they went on a great run last year, made it all the way to the Cup Finals. I still think they managed to find their way, barely squeaking in. Underrated is Columbus, just because I love me some Torts, man. Love Torts. Great. I think he's a great coach, and always has good defense, good goaltending. And my 4 teams are Tampa, Carolina, Columbus, and Dallas, and Tampa wins the division.
So I think the best team, and I know Xavier says you do know Kucherov is out. I do know Kucherov is out, but that's how good Tampa Bay is. I think there's a legitimate chance Tampa Bay wins about 45 games in this division. Like if you look at the teams that are in here, like nobody else is really on their level. And I think Carolina's very good, but they're not on Tampa's level. Tampa's that good. I mean, Tampa can afford to take a guy like Kucherov, put him out for the year on whether it's a real injury or not because of cap situation. And I think that they're going to be just fine. I do think that they're their best team. This is the easy one for the worst team because Detroit's not trying to be good. They are in the early innings, really, of this rebuild. I mean, again, there's going to be some players that play well for this team, and they will find their way out of it like most teams do. But right now, I think the addition of Stevie Y at the helm is fantastic. I think it will expedite things. He's done it in Tampa, so I mean, he has a track record. But I do think that they're the worst team. I think Oveready actually go in a couple different directions. So I'll go a direction nobody else went, and that's with Nashville. You know, Nashville's a team that we continue to think is among the elite teams in the league, and they just never show it in the playoffs. Talent's there, but guys like Ryan Johansson, who I used to be a big fan of, like, has aged terribly. Goaltending is a question mark. Not really know who, at least right now, until Askarov, I think, takes over. But you know, I'm not a big Saros guy. I think Rene is in the ninth. I think it was in the ninth inning 3 years ago. So I think that they're a team that we keep waiting for to make a run, and they just don't. So I'm going to say the overrated team is Nashville Predators, and I really think underrated team is still Carolina. I think people look at Carolina's goaltending, realize it's not very good, but they win anyway. That's a very, very deep group of players. Carolina still does not get the credit that they deserve. So to me, I think they're an underrated team. For playoff teams, I mean, you can pencil in Tampa Bay right now. That one's easy. You can pencil in Carolina right now. That one's easy. After that, I think it gets a little murkier. I do think Columbus finds their way in because I think they have a very, very strong defensive structure. Remember, they were the last team to beat Tampa Bay in a playoff series. The Dubois thing is going to hang over them the same way the Panarin thing and the Rocky thing hung over them a couple years ago. It is what it is. They're my third team. And then my fourth team to get in, I think Florida finds a way. I'm not buying Nashville here, so I'm gonna give that spot to Florida, and I think by the end of this, Tampa finds their way back into the Final Four. So I think Tampa will be coming out of the Central Division, despite the fact that they have no Kucherov. The Honda West Division, interesting. I will start this division off with Anthony Morello.
All right, sweet. So the best division there the best team in that division is the Avs, in my opinion. It's really close with them and the Knights, but I give the talent. I think they have more talent than the Knights do, even though the goaltending might be a little bit better in Vegas. The worst team is the Coyotes. Overrated, I'm going with the Blues. I just think that that Stanley Cup run they had was their peak, and they're sliding down the hill. Underrated, I'm going with the Ducks. I think that's a young team on the rise with good goaltending and a good coach. And then my playoff teams are going to be the Avs, Knights, Blues, and Ducks. I think the Ducks. I don't think that's a great division. I think the Ducks wind up making that fourth, and then the winner is going to be the Avs.
Yeah, I think this is the worst division in the league this year. I think you have three very good teams in Vegas, Blues, and the Avs, and then pick one of the other five teams to make it as the fourth team. I mean, yeah, that's basically it, right? I think the best team, I agree, is Colorado. My worst team is San Jose because, man, did that team get real old real fast. Yeah. And, so I have them as the worst. I agree. The Ducks are probably the most underrated. They would be my pick to be that fourth team if I were to, since I have to pick a fourth team to come out of this division, I'm gonna pick the Ducks based on a lot of the reasons you said. And my overrated is I don't know. I guess the Blues would be a little overrated. I think they're still good enough to be like the third best team in this division, but I think they're definitely not as good as they were that Cup year. That was a great run, and I think being 2 years removed from that Cup, people still think they're this top-notch contender. I don't think they're on that tier. So,
but who won the trade?
Oh, don't even start, man. Don't. God forbid. I think Colorado is the winner that comes out of this division.
I also like Colorado as the best in this division. I think the Coyotes are the worst in this division. Most overrated team, I think, are the Wild. I think the Wild every year, to me, they have a solid defense. I think their offense is weak. I think their goaltending is weak. They are young, and I think that they'll shine in that regard, but I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. Underrated team, I think, is the Sharks. Actually, I'm going to go the opposite of Hess. The only reason why is because Carlson had a terrible year last year. I know Brett Burns is getting older. They got Devin Dubnyk this year. Maybe they could return to a little bit of form here. Like you said, those bottom 4 teams, it's an up and down. Anybody can make it at that point. So I think that they could possibly bounce up enough to say that my top 4, Colorado, Vegas, St. Louis, and I'm taking the Sharks as the 4 seed.
All right.
Matt.
So we agree. It's funny. It's a different take than all 3 of them on the 4th team, but I agree. Colorado, best team in that division. Worst team, I'm going to go with the Kings. I don't follow the West teams too much, especially with the late games, San Jose, the LA. I'll go most overrated because I actually picked them to go far last year was the Wild. So I think it's similar type of to the Islanders that they overachieved. So the Wild is overrated. Most underrated, just because I just look at more of their stats and their numbers from a defensive standpoint of the goals against for a while, for a lot of the season. I'm going with the Coyotes. I think Colorado comes out of there as the best team over Vegas as number 2. We all agree number 3, the Blues. Like they usually haven't shown up in the playoffs until they made the 1 or 2 good years, but they've always been a disappointment in the playoffs. And my 4th team, since everyone's picking, I'm going with the Coyotes though too, just from winning a lot of low-scoring games and just seeing young players. Not any big names, but that's just a team that just stuck out to me in this division as a number 4.
To me, the best team in this division also happens to be the most overrated team in this division. And you got to follow my thought process here. Colorado is the best team in this division. They're also the most overrated because the offensive firepower is unbelievable, and it's only going to get better. People that don't follow prospect systems don't realize just the immense amount of talent that is still coming for this team, which is really goddamn scary for everybody in the Western Conference. I say they're also the most overrated because we put them on this pedestal like they're untouchable. They lost in the playoffs last year to a team that really didn't score that many goals because their goaltending was terrible. They did nothing to address that this offseason, and that is still their Achilles heel. And when it gets down to a playoff series, you need a base level of goaltending. And I know they had injuries last year, but at some point, the skill on your power play is not going to be enough to get you through. So while I do think they're going to put up a lot of wins against some bad teams in this division, and they'll probably do well enough against the other 2 good teams in this division to win it, I think they're overrated because I can't put any faith in that goaltending when it matters.
You don't like Grubauer?
No, I didn't like him when they signed him. I thought he's just a guy.
Okay.
I mean, could he prove me wrong? Yeah, but I think that they needed to make a move there. Why they weren't in the Braden Holtby sweepstakes, I will not understand. There were free agent goalies very easily found this year, and they have cap space, and they decided not to go that direction. To me, that was a mistake on their part. But they're still a very good team. I mean, some of the best players in the world play on that team, and it's insane with guys still coming like Newhook and Bowen Byram. I mean, the system is just very, very, very well stocked. The worst team to me in this division is still San Jose, which because it's an aging team, there is no light at the end of the tunnel, didn't have a first-round pick last year, goaltending is an issue. I mean, look, there's individual players that I like. I think Evander Kane's very underrated. I think Erik Karlsson can probably put 2 and 2 together at some point. Other than that, I think that this team, there was a reason they were picking where they were, or they were supposed to be picking in the draft. I think they're the worst team in the division. I mentioned Colorado was overrated. My underrated team here would probably be, in a way, I think it still might be the Blues because, yes, they lost Pietrangelo, but they replaced them with Torrey Krug, which I think they're actually better off. But I think that of the 3 elite teams in this division, they're the one that gets the least play. I think people look at Vegas and some of the guys like Mark Stone and their goaltending, and they signed Pietrangelo and Pacioretty, and they got these names. And then you look at a team like St. Louis, which really won their Stanley Cup with some skill and some grit, which I don't necessarily know that Vegas is really that deep in. So I think in a way, as good as I think St. Louis is, and they're definitely a playoff team, they're underrated because Colorado and Vegas steal the spotlight. The 3 playoff teams here are very, 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 very easy. It is Colorado. It is St. Louis. It is Vegas. The fourth one, frankly, really doesn't matter. But if that's first round series of 2-3, like it is so important to win the division because you don't want to be in that 2-3 because it's going to be nuclear war. The team that I think is the fourth playoff team is probably going to be Arizona because I think they defend well. I think they have good goaltending. And if nothing else, they're better than LA. They're better than Minnesota, and they're better than San Jose. So I'm going to play process of elimination and say that they end up in the 4 seed. They won a playoff round last year. So
do they defend the blue line well?
They deny the blue line exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Deny the blue line. That's right.
Hockey thinking there. Coming out of this division, I'm going to go against the grain here. And again, I love Colorado, and don't get me wrong. I just think that I need to see better goaltending there. This is going to be a year, I think, where Vegas finds their way out of it. I think that St. Louis, again, I think crew for Pietrangelo is a wash. It might actually be a little bit better, but I think that Vegas knows they don't have that many more years with this group of players because the cap is going to come and bite them in the ass. They have some other players that are coming, but eventually they're going to have to disassemble the top end of this team. This is their best shot to me. So I think they find their way out of this group. It will not be very easy at all. It will be very difficult, and whoever comes out is going to be very, very battle tested. I'm going to say that I think Vegas finds their way out of the.
Do you think that it was bad that they made it to the Cup Finals their first year?
I think it was bad for the league because it should be easy for it. I mean, if Seattle comes and does the same thing, it's going to be a serious problem.
Seattle's going to win the Cup their first year.
Kraken.
Stupid name.
All right.
Last but not least, Canada. They don't have the junior championship gold up in Canada, but they do have 7 teams in their own division. It's the Scotia North Division, which obviously that's Canadian Bank or whatever they are.
I want to go first because I'm bouncing after this.
Go right ahead, Michael.
All right. So, Scotia, is that what it is?
Scotia.
Huh.
Scotia Bank.
I have as the best team in this division the Edmonton Oilers. Okay. Worst team, Ottawa Senators. Most overrated, I think, is actually one of the playoff teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that they suck every year in the playoffs. I think that they're overrated. They do have their weapons and stars, but I just don't. They don't do anything for me besides their big 4. Most underrated team, I'm actually going to go with Edmonton, the 1 seed that I have as the underrated team because they just keep getting better and better every year. They had a lot of number 1 picks. I mean, they should have an easier way to get there, but I think that they're going to put it all together this year. What do we got here? Oh, you took my thing away. What was the next thing? Playoff
teams.
Edmonton, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary.
Playoffs.
I like Calgary getting in as that 4 seed. I don't think Montreal has enough yet. And Vancouver lost a lot of guys this year. Toffoli, Tanev, Markstrom. I don't really see them doing much this year. And the winner of that, I said, is Edmonton.
Matt? Or Hask, whatever.
Listen, this division was like the toughest for me to pick 4 teams out of. My best team here is actually going to be Vancouver. Yeah, they did lose a couple guys, but I think Elias Pettersson.
Oh, Christ. Now I'm leaving.
That's right. Get out. Get out. Punk. I think he's a star on the rise. I think he becomes a superstar this year. I think they're the best team in the division. This was also the easiest division to pick a worst team, Ottawa Senators, because this division is, you have 6 good to very good teams, and then you have Ottawa. So that was easy to pick the worst team here. Overrated, I'm going Edmonton. Based on the reasons that Velarde gave for Toronto being the most overrated, because they get into the playoffs, they have this top end talent, and then they do nothing. They choke in the playoffs every time. So I think your 4 and the underrated team is the Canucks, because I think they end up being the 1 seed in this division. So I'm saying the Canucks. I'm saying the Flames. I'm saying Toronto and Edmonton do get in. And then I'm going with a surprise winner. Calgary Flames come out of the playoffs.
Wow.
How about that? Hot takes.
Mm-hmm.
Sucking Velarde.
It's amazing we have similar and then with like total opposite with something. So Best team, I'm going to go with the Oilers. Yes, I know they do underachieve in the playoffs. I just have a feeling this year is going to be a different year, and I have high expectations for McDavid to even do bigger and better things. Worst team is Ottawa, but it was a close actually in Ottawa and the Jets though too. Again, another team I don't follow too much too that plays a sound systematic hockey, but I still have it at Ottawa as still the bottom feeder there. Most overrated team I have is the Jets though too as well. I mean they have the goaltending though too. Hellebuck was the Vezina winner last year. But I don't know. I don't know if it's their style of play though too. Again, that just I think they're gonna not do as well this year. Underrated. I'm going with the Canucks though too because Brian sort of turned me on to them last year. I know they lost some players though too, but they did pick up Nate Schmidt though too. So I thought that was a good pickup for them. My four teams, I think it has had the four on the head though too: Canucks, the Flames, the Oilers, and the Maple Leafs. And I do have this is the year in one of these years that one of these Canadian teams that is going to make it at least somewhat far because Brian, you could probably tell you look at the stats the last couple of years how many teams have made it out of the first and second round that were one of these 7 teams. I mean it's been few and far between, which is kind of scary though too. So I have the Oilers over the Canucks though too as the top 2 teams with the Oilers getting out in that division.
My last one.
I didn't go yet.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
It's up to you, but all right, I'll go. I think the best teams, Hess and I are pretty much on the same page here. The Canucks are definitely the best team. They have the goaltending. They got Holtby in the offseason. They're led by some really phenomenal young talent. Elias Pettersson, as you guys like to have hard-ons about. And then obviously Quinn Hughes is a complete stud leading the defense.
And would you believe that Elias Pettersson went in the 25th round of a draft I was in? It was wild.
Yeah. Hasn't worked out for you though. Virtanen and Horvat and JT Miller, they're loaded. I think the worst team is obviously the Senators, but they're on their way. As long as they don't lose Matt Murray and they can build with that nucleus, that young nucleus they have. The Oilers are my most overrated. The best talent in the world, just could never put it all together. No defense, no goaltending. Underrated is the Jets because they have a ton of talent. They can always surprise and get all the way to the conference finals. Playoffs, Jets, Canucks, Oilers, Leafs, and not a team I'm really going to talk about much because the Leafs, like Velarde was saying earlier, they always choke. I think they get out of the first round, though, finally. And then I think the winner is the Canucks.
We're not going to realize in the States just how much of a war this division is going to be, both on the ice and in the media, because you know how Canada is. And this is now their own group of teams. It's never happened before. Mm-hmm. This is going to be absolutely insane north of the border. And I'm really going to try to keep as much tabs on it as I possibly can. And it's actually wild because there are so many crazy similarities between the Maple Leafs and the Oilers. It's unbelievable. They are both teams that perennially underachieve with loads of top-end talent, not a lot in the middle. Goaltending's an issue, and we don't know who's playing defense. It's amazing how close these teams actually are. It's wild, actually. The best team in this division, it's very tough for me because I also believe that Vancouver is on the rise, and I think that in a year or two we're going to be talking about them a lot more than we are right now if they keep their things going.
Rangers Canucks finals.
Bring back 94. I'll take it tomorrow. I'm going to say Edmonton because I think they have the two best players in the league, which is insane that they're on the same team and they're getting paid big money, and it is what it is. Last year was a big disappointment for them. I think actually it was more of a disappointment than Toronto's was. Toronto went up against a good team. Edmonton had every reason to be as the 5 seed to get out of the first round against the Blackhawks team. Shouldn't even been there. So I think Edmonton is the best team because they have the more top end talent, which is compared to Toronto, kind of crazy to say, but they do. Worst team here is very easy. It's Ottawa, but it won't be Ottawa for very long. I mean, Ottawa's going to build this over time. They continue to draft exceptionally well with high picks. And that Carlson trade it's not quite Herschel Walker, but you get that sort of return from it. They're not going to be bottom feeders for a very long time. The overrated team here, I think, is Calgary, because I think that we continue to elevate guys like Monahan and Gaudreau and Kachuk and think they're this elite team. And then they had one good year 2 years ago. They lost in the first round to an upstart Avalanche team. Then last year they lose in the playoff. It's like, shit, get off the pot, man. Like if this is who you are, you better just break it up, because this is not winning. So to me, I think they're overrated because we romanticize these players, and defensively they're a lot older than you think they are. I mean,
Giordano's what, 37?
Yeah, it's like unreal. Like, it's crazy. And then even the goaltending, just they added Markstrom, but I'm not really. I think they're an overrated team. Underrated team, without question, is Vancouver, because, again, not only do you have the players that you have right now, you have more talent on the way, and Quinn Hughes is fantastic. They're still going to get Podkolzin from Russia. Deep system, like the team, like their future, hate their jerseys. I think that they're the underrated team in this group. As far as the playoffs go, I'm going to go with Toronto and Edmonton. I am going to take Vancouver as my 3, and then I'm going to go off the board here and say Montreal sneaks in as the 4. I think that's all Carey Price, and I think that you saw Kotkaniemi last year. You saw some of their younger guys take on roles. I think that they're on the way up. Now, again, the Price contract is a very big problem, and it's going to be a very big problem, but that's your own doing. I will say that they're my 4 teams. And the winner of this division, I'm going to just go out on a limb. And this is I think the 3rd damn year I've done this, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to say it's Toronto, because at some point they have to get through. Edmonton's different because Edmonton has younger players. This is, in a weird way, they're more of a veteran team in Toronto. With, again, guys like Tavares, Matt, you know him very well, Austin Matthews. At some point, I think once they break through one, okay, all right, we're good.
How do they keep on losing? How is the year with all that talent? I mean, how is it?
Well, because for example, I like Morgan Riley more than most. Actually, my partner and I drafted him in our fantasy team. I think he can be an offensive guy. I think they keep trying to patch holes, and I think it doesn't really work. But I think they made some changes in the offseason. I think at some point it is possible they may move on from one of their big 4, and I think it might be William Nylander, which might be the easiest one to trade. To be frank, I think if they could go back and do it all over again, they probably wouldn't sign John Tavares, because I think that elevated expectations to a level they couldn't really meet, and put so much money into the forward position. And frankly, I look at that team as a cautionary tale for the Rangers, because, again, when you look at guys like Lafreniere and Kakko and Lundqvist that is coming, and Adam Fox, and just the plethora of youth that they have, they're going to need deals, and they're going to be high-priced deals because they were high draft picks. And I just hope and pray that this doesn't become Toronto 2.0, because if you have that much money locked up in your top, with guys like Zibanejad and Panarin too making money, it's a problem, and you lose players. But yeah, I think I'll take Toronto. I'm a glutton for punishment, so I will
Stanley Cup.
I will stay with that. So, give me your best guess. And again, we don't really know, because it's going to be 1-4, right? We don't 1-4, 2-3. We don't even know if what we're going to give you is a viable cup matchup. Give me your cup matchup and your winner.
I'll go. I think it's going to be a repeat of 2 years ago, but different result. I'm going to take the Knights over the Caps.
Like that.
Go ahead, Matt.
Brian mentioned earlier how and again, I don't follow their goaltending as much, but I just looked at the Colorado's numbers last year. I think I mentioned it. I mean, look how many guys they had that scored 10-plus goals, let alone I think they had 9 guys and 2 guys in 19, just so consistently balanced all the way through from McKinnon down through, Burakovsky to, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, Landeskog, and then, Kadri and all the guys. And Brian, they also picked up, they just picked up in a trade. They picked up Sadda too. So I think that's the team to beat this year. And goaltending wise, I knew you mentioned Grubauer though too. How do you pronounce the other guy's name though too? Pavel Francois. He actually had better numbers. They almost split the duties though too. So I think going to the playoffs, maybe he becomes the hot goaltender though too, and they're number 1, because they did play almost the same amount of games and his goals against was lower, slightly lower. So I like them over. I'm trying to go. I like them over Tampa Bay in that final 2, and I think Colorado is if not we said Tampa Bay was good and deep, but I think Colorado, especially with the pick of Assad, though, puts them over the edge, and they find a way to win this year.
So I have Tampa with the best record. However, because that's based on the division that they're playing in, Brian T, you said, 45 games. They might win 45 this year. That's a possibility. Even without Kucherov. I think Colorado is probably the second best record, and then Boston and I have Calgary, but whatever. Boston, like I said, they're coming out of the East. Tough road. So they might be third or fourth. I think they get that third spot. They knock off Colorado, and they beat Tampa in the final. Boston over Tampa. I think Boston should have won it all last year if this bubble thing didn't happen and Tuukka doesn't opt out. I think it was theirs to win. So I think they finally they make up for last year and they win the cup that they should have got last year.
This is hard because there's so many teams that I think can actually have a legitimate shot, especially in this format. I am going to stick with my underrated team. I do think that the Vegas Golden Knights get their way into the finals. I think they have long-term goaltending problems they have to fix because Fleury doesn't want to be there. And I'm not a Leonard guy. I never was a Leonard guy. I don't care wherever he's been. I've just not been. There was a time he got traded for a first-round pick. I thought it was insane. But I do think Vegas is not – there's no holes. I mean, they've done just a phenomenal job building the team. I mean, they had a leg up. Don't get me wrong. And I'm a very vocal critic of how they got a leg up. But I do think that Vegas finds their way into the final. And then I will say I will throw out a dart that they come up against the Boston Bruins. Because again, I think that a battle-tested team has been there and done that before with veteran leadership, with scoring throughout the lineup. So Boston and Vegas, and then I will say, pending the health of David Pastrnak, which I think he's going to be okay. I think they do win the Stanley Cup. I think that the goaltending will be fine. I have concerns on their defense, the valid ones too. But the thing about the East is it's good because there's more good teams. But to be frank, I think Boston's better than the rest of them. I think you have Boston, and I think you have Philadelphia, and then I think you have this muddled middle of Washington, Pittsburgh, Rangers, Islanders, and then the bottom. That's kind of just how I think it breaks down. So I think Boston gets through as a result. I think, again, Boston also is aided by not having to go play Tampa Bay or Toronto the way they used to in that division. So, I mean, that is a benefit to them as well while lowering their overall travel. So give me the Boston Bruins to win the Stanley Cup. And last but certainly not least, the NHL has the best names for awards, even though I'm sure it'll probably be like, the Enterprise Rent-A-Car Hart Trophy and the, Amazon.com Norris Trophy and whatever. Anthony, Hart Trophy. Who gets the MVP?
I was trying to go a little bit off the beaten path here, but I think it's going to be Nathan McKinnon.
Do what you feel.
I think it's going to be Nathan McKinnon. I think he's got obviously a tremendous first line, one of the best defensemen, quarterback in the power play for him. They have all sorts of obviously good things in Colorado. So I think I'm going to ride with McKinnon. I think my Norris is going to be John Carlson. I think Lavi has a lot of success with those types of defensemen, as you saw with the OC and some of the other guys there, Ellis. My Ross is, when in doubt, just go with Connor McDavid every time. I think that's pretty easy. And then my Vezina, you were just touching on him, Brian, but I do think it's going to be Robin Leonard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with Ant on the Hart Trophy, taking Nathan McKinnon as well. I think he has a great year leading Colorado. Art Ross, also going with McDavid. Norris Trophy, I'm going to go with Quinn Hughes. Vezina, I'm going right here. Let's go. Boom.
I like it.
All right. And Calder, I'm going to take. I guess I'll go with that Canadian guy that went number one in the draft, whatever.
Oh, I didn't do Calder. I'm
Stupid
sorry.
ping pong ball and all that bullshit.
Calder, yeah, definitely a lot.
Stinks. Put the ping pong ball down.
And if he gets hurt for whatever reason, sorry, Brian, but then it'll be Byfield.
I don't think Byfield's playing.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I'm just saying.
Stutzel's got a good shot at it. I think because he's playing on a bad team. He's going to get all the time in the world. So,
Matt.
A little bit similar, but a little bit different though too. Looking at some of the past winners, but I'm as we just came off a crazy year though too. I'm still in COVID protocol, I guess, for lack of a term. I'm going with the Hart and the Art Ross going to Connor McDavid. In one of the rarer feats though too. I was going back and forth on the because I saw him in the playoffs though too. The Islanders play him. He showed me a lot offensively and defensively though too in the semifinals. I'm going with Hedman as the to get the Norris though too. He's such a high pick though too, but just his style from scoring, his shot to defensively. I mean, he really wore down the Islanders though too. Vezina, I'm going back to maybe old hat though too with Rask though too. I think he's going to set himself apart again. Shortened season though too. I think the goaltending is going to be close with from goals against to shutouts to whatever. So I'll take Rask in a close race with a couple different goaltenders. Now the Calder is
Rookie.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll go with the guy that I said though too that you. Again, could he be a bust? Probably not, though, too. So I'll go with I don't want to say his name, though, too, because, I can't stand your team.
It's fine.
Alexei Lafreniere.
So I'll do this in out of order. As far as the Calder Trophy goes, I will tell you that it's probably going to be a New York Ranger, but they have two shots at it. If it's not Lafreniere, it's Igor Shesterkin, and that really depends on how well Lafreniere does. Listen, this is one of those things where it's his award to lose, but he could lose it to a teammate. And Shesterkin, if he does anything close to what he did last year over the course of a season, I think he's going to get a lot of consideration for that. So I will say that the Calder goes to a Ranger, and I get two shots at that.
Cheater. Cheater. Just pick somebody.
Shesterkin.
There you go. That's the spirit.
My Norris Trophy winner, Matt, is same as you. This is Victor Hedman's award until it's not. And I think he is by far the best total all-around defenseman in the league. He gets paid the big bucks for a reason. Won a Stanley Cup. He's he is exactly what – when you go and draft a defenseman, if you want to go draft Victor Hedman. Like, that's what you want, right? So, now I think Hedman wins the Norris. On the Vezina side of things, this is going to be Vasilevsky for the simple fact that his division stinks, and I think he's going to put up ridiculously good goaltending numbers as a result. Ton of wins, good goals against, save percent, whatever. I mean, it's just like you're going to keep playing these bad teams. They're going to make you look good as a result. So there may be goalies even in the East or the West that play better but have worse results. And the numbers are what's the award based on. So I will give the Vezina Trophy to Vasilevsky. I will take the same player for the Hart and the Art Ross, and that is Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the year that I think he's going to be the guy the whole way. He is healthy. There's no issues. And it's weird, right? We've said this all the time. It is crazy playing in Toronto. Ain't nobody going to be there now. So I think that can play possibly a role. I think he has a big, big, big year. I don't want to pick Connor McDavid, so I'm going to go with Austin Matthews for both the Hart and the Art Ross. I think if he wins the Art Ross, he wins the Hart. He can win the Hart without the Art Ross, but I think if he wins one, he wins the other.
Yeah, I think I would have picked McDavid for the Hart as well, but I think with Draisaitl there too, it kind of takes away from it a little bit. You know what I mean?
But that's what's going to
take away from each other.
Yeah,
kind of like the Calder in New York.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be all the way around this year.
Right.
I think McDavid's got more points and a little bit bigger year, so sort of complement each other, but the other way. So I think that's why he gets the edge.
Guys, I'm going to let you finish up. I'm going to go.
We're pretty much done, aren't we?
Yeah, this was the
That was the last question.
Thanks for letting me join.
You got it.
Deuces.
Anthony Morel. So, guys, listen. Thank you. Whoa. That's what happened.
Whoa, way too close. Back it up.
All right, whoa.
We look like the the sports rookie card.
I was gonna start doing like the see no evil here. And that's our NHL preview. Listen, it's gonna be a weird year. I'm looking forward to it because the Rangers are the youngest team in the league, and I want to see these kids develop. At the end of the day, this I think is the final year of the build. I think after the money comes off I'm going to go around the room here for our teams. After the money comes off, it's full steam ahead. They're going to have about $27 million available against the cap next year. Yes, they do have long-term contracts to worry about. Not disputing that whatsoever. But they're going to be out of cap hell. And when you buy players out, you put yourself in cap hell. And I'm okay with that. They've drafted exceptionally well. I think they can make a trade for an impact player at any given time because they have the assets with which to do it. So it can happen at any moment. They're in on Dubois. They're probably in on Line A, although I wouldn't really want that one. I think the price would be too high plus the contract. Sky's the limit. This is another transitional year, but I'm ready for it. So it'll be fun. Matt.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the cap issues with the Islanders. I think they're going to hopefully draft good, and that's why they moved Taves too. I don't think it was their best move, but I mean, maybe Lamoureux has a long-term plan. You have to sign Barzal, and then I said maybe it's a new building. I know in the past, and you discussed it, no one's obviously the Islanders are the afterthought behind the Rangers, especially with players going there. But I think with a new arena. It's funny. It's actually on the Nassau, Queens, or New York City border. So closer to probably 20, 25 miles from the Garden. Maybe that's something to do with it. Just a new arena and a new change of scenery. And if the team plays it up to expectations or beyond expectations again this year, maybe they pick up a decent name free agent in the offseason or make some type of mini to major blockbuster trade. Where, like you said, they trade maybe a prospect or a chip or two or a high draft pick or one or two of their extra second round picks. But I really want them to get one of the bigger scorer. And if they have to trade one of the first or second line wingers this year to do that and to lock up Barzal for long term, I hope they do it that too. And they overachieved last year. This year, I think they're going to take a step back. But I'm still excited that they're actually playing relevant hockey though too again.
What I will tell you is something you may not want to hear. Sources indicate to me that this is going to be a bridge deal for Barzal. It's going to be something short. They're going to get every bit. He's going to get every dollar they can give him in the short term because they can't. He'll take a long-term deal. They don't have the money to give a long-term deal.
Well, and if that's the case, they better not do no Tavares. The year they say he's not going to walk, whatever, they make a trade. You're going to get a ransom for him, though, too, if he continues to develop the way he's playing,
The quote that I got from an internal source, he's going to get whatever money they can find.
Right.
As he should. I mean, he was in that Flyers Islanders series last year. I mean, he was clearly the best player on the ice. I mean, he's a special talent, that's for sure. As far as the Flyers go, look, they have a goalie for the first time in forever. They have a goalie that they can depend on. They have a young, still improving defense in front of him. The questions is going to be this about the scoring. Patrick Laine would be a great fit in Philly, but it's not going to happen because you're overpaying Giroux now, you're overpaying Voracek, and you're overpaying JVR. If you were only overpaying 2 out of the 3 of them, you could probably afford to get Laine in here. But you're paying all 3 of them, overpaying them a lot of money. That being said, they are deep at forward, even though those guys are declining, those aging veterans. That's how they're going to win games this year is with their depth. Okay, they can roll 4 lines out there and they can score with any of those 4 lines. Yes, they don't have that top-end talent, but that's how they're going to try to win these games, defense and goaltending. Second or third best team in that division, tough division. Both of your teams are in it. I'm looking forward to this year. I'm excited. yes, AV, these teams get worse under him, but I think it's still with a young team, it's still looking up.
Do you think they move one of those big contracts if they can this year?
They can't. I don't think they can. They're going to have to attach a they're going to have to attach a pick to it, and I think they probably tried to do it last draft and nobody bit.
They're an interesting team because, like I said, they're very. They probably have. You could probably put together 3 second lines from the guys that they have, and that's very good. That's a good thing. But they lost gritty players from last year. Pardon the pun. The Nate Thompsons, the Derek Grants, the Pitlicks, the guys that were their fourth line, which at some points in the Montreal series were the best line on the ice. And in these kind of games, they may miss that element. And to my lack of surprise, AV used them a lot. He's known to do that. I think they're going to jump up. I think Farabee has obviously a better year. I think Frost gets a legit look. I don't know what to make of Lindblom. I don't mean to sound cold because I don't mean this at all. I don't. He's an X factor for me. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect from a guy going through what he went through. It's not his fault. I need to see him do it before I say he can do it again.
Sure.
Nolan Patrick, I think anything's gravy. I think you're not worried about this year for him. I think you look at it next year. But I do think they're looking at a salary cap bomb once Carter Hart needs a deal. I think that's a $10 million a year deal, and I think he can bend them over a barrel to get it. And when you start looking again, Sanheim was bridged, so he's going to need a deal. You may say, "Hey, we have Cam York coming." Maybe you do when he shows up, but look, to their credit, I mean, they've drafted exceptionally well. Even after Hextall left, the Bobby Brink pick was very good. This last draft they had, I thought was very good for where they were picking. What I will tell you is I was critical of them taking Cam York over Cole Caulfield because I think Caulfield filled more. I think he'll be in the league before we know it. I didn't think they need a defense there, but John Suggs, does Patrick make the lineup? Hasn't played since 2000. He's good. I think he gets in. But
if he's healthy, he's there.
Third line.
He's healthy, he's there. He's a third line center.
Yeah, and I think that it's gravy, right? I think that's just
it's
my
gravy,
reason.
exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, switching. I just read this. Did you? I guess you already reported. I didn't check the page that the Mets made the deal today though too. So I guess I'll get into that offline with you.
Yeah, are you just catching that now?
Yeah, because I didn't even. So
do you not follow our sports box page when I broke that news at 10 a.m.?
I was working.
Really?
I was working today and did not.
Oh my god!
So
what a heist!
At least they're making moves though too. One of the more exciting teams though too. Hopefully, then looking for a big year from them. So we'll see.
So from the outside looking in, when you look at the Rangers, what is your realistic expectation of the season?
They're a borderline playoff team.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I think you're with Panarin and Zibby. You have two high-end scorers. It's going to be, and I think Igor is going to be very good. It's the defense that is my issue. Listen, Tony D, guy's a great power play quarterback, but man, he gives it up on the defensive end. It's all forward with him, and that's kind of an issue out of one of your top pair defensemen. So that's my only issue with them. Honestly, I think their forwards will be fine, and I think the goaltending is going to be fine. It's the defense.
So they're moving him to the left to pair up with Trouba. So they're kind of doing two pairs where you have an offensive guy and a defensive guy, which which Trouba can do both, but I think he's like a tweener. D'Angelo Fox more offensively minded. Lindgren's a throwback to Jeff Bukabin, which I love. That third pair, they're going to fit to figure. And I'd like to see them give it to a kid. I think I'd like to see Keandre Miller get a legit shot there. The future is very bright. Again, I've been patient. But they've done literally almost everything right, and I've said that from the jump. Listen, I'm a Cowboys fan. I rip them constantly. I am nothing if I'm not real when it comes to, because I don't care if I'm right. I just want the team to win.
I heard Dan Girardi might be available.
I guess they'll pay him in the play. If they can listen, 2C third pair, they get that done with youth or with anything else. I really think we're on the cusp of 10 years where they're just literally a legitimate contender. And I don't mean like 2012 to 2016 contender where this was Lundqvist and friends. I mean, this is really a good hockey team with not a lot of holes. And I think they're going to actually do something. The guy was on NHL Network saying he thinks they win a cup by 25. Listen.
Well, how do you think they fill that 2C spot? Is it going to be a cash in of these prospects, or do you expect like a Philip Hedl to kind of grow into that role, or
so I think
they move somebody from a wing into that spot? What's the deal?
I think you're going to find that out next year. I think they're going to be too patient after next year. I think this is the last year of patience. I think and then remember, Hedl's only 21 years old. I mean, that's the crazy
right.
thing, right? So
you might have the 2C right there.
Don't be surprised if he gets moved to the wing. If they can combine some of their youth. Again, I think Pavel Buchnevich is not long for this team. I think when that contract comes up, he's not going to be able to get one. Again, that's Kakko, that's Kravtsov. That's do you move Kreider or Lafreniere to the right-hand side? You can do that. There's this talk again, Lafreniere at center. I'm not going to buy that. Kreider at center. I know Xavier mentioned I'm not going to buy that either. I want a natural guy there. I don't want a guy playing out of position just because. The thing about Lafreniere, though, is the reason they say center is more important is because they drive play. Lafreniere across that blue, when he's in the offensive zone, he makes players better. He drives play. He drives play like a center does. So I don't know that it's crucially important, but they need to not end up with JVR on their third line with Chris Kreider, and that's my concern. If they can move Kreider to the right-hand side, now it's Kakko and Kreider, Lafreniere, Panarin, fill that 2C. Even if Kravtsov's on the third line, maybe Kravtsov's your piece, which his value's kind of, he's been playing in Russia. They're going to have to, and Johnson mentions Julian Gauthier. Gauthier's a third-line guy. Good, big body, like him. Still, if you can build a deep top 9, that's where you want to be. And that fourth line can play roles, right? I like Morgan Barron. If I see Morgan Barron on the team, I'm going to be happy about that. Again, Keandre Miller. People don't realize how big their defensive prospects are. Guys like Robertson, they just drafted Braden Schneider. I mean, they think they have a bunch of top 4 defense all over the place. So
well, and then once you establish that core of top 6, and like you need that third liner is when you make those mid-season trades to get third line guys. That's where you get those complementary pieces that you need to that push.
Yeah.
When it comes time, that push for the playoffs.
I think
deep runs.
Yeah, in a weird way, all 3 of the teams that we root for are in similar situations that they've drafted well and the prospect system is good, but they may use it for different reasons. Right. For the Islanders, it's we need to fix this cap problem and sins of the past. We may have to dig into it. Well, Cherepano was he was a winger primarily, but God rest his soul. God, he'd be so old by now too. It's insane that was so long ago.
He was like one of my first keepers ever in like the first fantasy hockey league. I think it was the first year we were together.
He was supposed to play.
Yeah.
Supposed to play. I think I drafted wrong. I thought I drafted like it was a dynasty league. I didn't know any better at the time.
Brian, I asked you this earlier. So if you had to put your money on it, and you said the next 10 years or so, do you see them winning a cup? If so, how many and what year? If you had to like throw money on it,
the Rangers.
Yeah,
I literally think they're 3 years away from being the best team in the Eastern Conference. And again, now that they can easily derail from that. Please don't get me wrong. If they make a bad signing, they try to push this forward. They give Zibanejad too much money. Really, I have concerns about Trouba and $8 million for as long as he's signed. That might be the next Dan Girardi. I'm very well aware of that. And then again, Kakko's going to need a deal. Lafreniere's going to need a deal. These are going to be $8 to $9 million deals. Look at with the precedent that's been set by the people in Toronto. We've seen this before. Their window might not be as long as I would like it to be, but if they continue to draft well, if they continue to bring up guys on ELCs that play well. We haven't even talked about Nils Lundqvist, who I think is the best defenseman in their system, who I think is better than Adam Fox. I love Adam Fox. The left side, again, the guys that are – I haven't even talked about Zach Jones, a find in the third round. Brett Berard was a fifth-round pick. He was one of the talks of the tournament this year. An energy player, getting in people's faces. That's a great third-line piece. They've done a great job. There's patience, and then there's over-patience. And if you look back at what the Flyers did, was it over-patience? I don't know. They never bottomed out. They never got the elite player. Had they, then maybe. But they were still trying to draft guys in mid-rounds that you didn't know what you had. I think to a pretty good extent, you know what you have in Lafreniere and Kakko. You know they're going to be players. For the Flyers, I don't think he knew that. So had they sold off, had they done what I think they should have done, had Hextall been allowed to break that team up at that time, I think they would have gotten better more quickly. Have they hit on draft picks? Yeah, they have. And good to them on it. Obviously, the big one's the goaltender. But again, I can't get off my criticism in that there needs to be foundational players. Where do you go get them? When cap space opens up, do you go sign somebody? Maybe, but then you're hoping somebody's there. And we know with free agency,
you're gonna have to pay the goaltender.
The goaltender.
You're gonna have to pay the goaltender. Yep. But listen, so they have the goaltender, they have the number one defenseman. They need the scoring. They're gonna need that top end scoring if they really want to be a contender year in, year out. That's what it is. Yeah, they're deep. They'll be a contender, but to be in that elite tier year in, year out, they're going to need that top end scoring.
And I think, again, I'm not saying this is anything more than this is how I really feel. I mean, the teams that are behind them, I don't think they're that far behind them because Jersey's going to figure it out. They have too much talent.
Yep.
The Rangers have figured it out, and they'll be there.
Yep.
I mean, you'll see that balance of power shift. You'll see Pittsburgh die out. You'll see Washington muddle into the middle there. Carolina will be back in the division again. I think the world of Carolina.
Yep.
They have trouble keeping players long term. We'll see. So, I think the story is set. The question is, can you just fulfill it now? Because
it's gonna be a deal where they're a perennial playoff team, but can they put it together and go on a run? And I think one thing that we didn't even get to discuss yet this entire show was how good the Flyers were at home last year.
Yep,
with the fans. And then we're not going to have fans this year, so I kind of tempered my expectations for the Flyers this year because of that.
That was a chief criticism of me for Carter Hart. What Carter Hart am I going to get? You were so bad away from your building.
Right, but I think he established that when they played in the bubble, I think he was good enough, played well enough that we can kind of dismiss that.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up. The no crowd. Even though you're at home, it's still that presence. And that, who knows how it's going. It's like you're playing in a minor league arena or nothing. So
this joke writes itself. I'm not even going to bring it up.
Oh yeah, whatever. You'll see that arena will be filled.
Maybe. Listen, I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is I can only go on what I see right now. I can only go on there.
Their fan base is Long Island. I keep telling you that.
Sure. Yes, but their fan base was in Long Island when they were at Nassau Coliseum and nobody went there.
We'll agree to disagree.
Look, it's going to be a new arena. You're going to want to. I get it. I just they also need to get through this cap problem. And again, listen, if they let Barzal walk the way Tavares walked, they're not going to live that down.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed.
Yep.
Like I don't. Again,
all right, boys, I'm out.
We're actually
later
anyway, but it wasn't Lou that did it, but Lou's got to find his way out of these deals. You can't just make him go away. Ladd's a problem. I mean, they talk about doing a Ladd for Parise trade because Minnesota wanted to get out of Parise, and
I would do that.
Savior mentions an offer sheet. I mean, tell you right now. I mean, is there any team in the league that is more susceptible to an offer sheet than the Islanders? Because somebody comes in there and offers Barzal this big deal, and they can't match it. What are they going to do? Like I don't think.
Boychuk's money doesn't come off the cap either this year, right?
It's LTIR, I believe, but it's tough, man. Look, they're in a tough spot. I mean, look, obviously, I don't like them. I'm not annoyed by it, but you're still paying Varlamov $5 million a year for 3 more years. And if Sorokin's your dude, if he's your guy, then you're paying essentially the backup $5 million, and he's 32. I think Sorokin is going to be the guy. So really. I thought that was an ill-advised contract last year to give him 4 years and $20 million because now I'm stuck with that $5 million and I need to go find money and I can't. I'm stuck with Andrew Ladd. I don't mind Josh Bailey's contract. I think Pajot's whatever. I'm not going to cry about it. But they have a lot of mid-level guys making like $5 million or more a year, and when that adds up, I mean, Nicoletti's making 5.5. Pulak's making 6. And I like Ryan Pulak. But, I mean, they need to move some guys out and then bring up the Wallstroms and the Dobsons and these guys and get production out of ELCs.
Yeah.
And they have a lot. And listen, talk about no trades, right? Lee, Nelson, Eberle, Ladd, Pajot, Komarov all have no trade clauses. They can only protect one more guy. If you go 7-3, and they will.
Yeah.
You know, even Varlamov's got a note. So they got to actually sign a goalie and play him to have somebody eligible for a goalie to take for Seattle. I don't like their situation for them. Objectively, I don't like the situation for them.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But listen, guys, thank you. I love when it's hockey night in the sports box. We're not normally on Thursdays, so we're happy to talk hockey with you guys. Check it. We'll be doing something for football this week. I don't know if we're doing Saturday or Sunday. We'll figure that out as we go along. But hockey's back in 6 days. Get excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. And stick with us. We'll try to do maybe some more hockey coverage as we go throughout the season here. Quick shout out to our friends over at CrowdPlay. Check out the free app, Google Play, Apple's App Store. It is free to play. You can win cash and prizes by predicting the outcome of both virtual and real events. It's a lot of fun. Use our code THEBOX at sign up. Get 10 free points. If you're like me, you're going to need it because I suck at CrowdPlay. On behalf of Hess, who left, Morella, who left, and the resident Islander fan, Matt Zuccarello, thank you for watching tonight's NHL preview. I really hope you enjoyed it and stick with us. We'll have a lot more hockey as we go through the season. Take care.
Thank you for watching the Sports Box. Follow us on Facebook at Sports Box Show, Twitter at Sports Box Show, Instagram at The Sports Box Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our friends at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 points. See you next time.